Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast, the first guest episode of the year. This particular episode has been in the works for quite some time. It's been very notoriously difficult to get this gentleman down. Welcome to the show, Eddie. Eddie Masterson, what's going on, man?
How's it going? How are you?
Good, I'm good. I'm good. It's good to finally get to do this show with you. Um, I think, do you know, it's interesting because there's a million things I could talk to you about on this show, and I'm sure in the future we'll do other episodes about different things. Everything from stories, music. Obviously, Eddie is also a musician. He runs a bar. I mean, very fucking cool guy. But what intrigued me was you actually approached me about wanting to do this show.
Yeah, it's like a specific topic as well, which I think hits both of us quite hard.
Yeah, walk us through that for a second. What prompted you to want to talk about this, about mental health?
So, outside of the podcast and stuff, we're quite good friends. We've been out together multiple times and stuff, and I think there's always been that one topic that we've always kind of hit on. You've just finished work, I've just finished work. We bump into each other, we have a beer. It's like, how's your day going? Not so good. How's yours? Not so good. And whenever we were planning to do this in December, winter time, this topic hits a lot harder. It's dark in the mornings, it's dark in the evenings, you don't want to get up, it's cold, and depression starts hitting in big time, stuff like that.
Do you suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder?
Um, yeah, slightly. It's weird. It's like the cold. You can be absolutely fine, and then you wake up one day and you just don't feel okay. And not necessarily something triggering it, just you know, like many other people probably. You just have your down days, and then you know,
Yes, I
people,
I know what you mean. Like in the winter, it is a lot worse. There are those moments where it just hits you off guard. Like I've had nights where, okay, don't get me wrong. If you're drinking, it's a depressant. It is what it is. It's gonna make you feel worse. Like my advice: if you're feeling bad, don't have a drink. Do
yeah,
anything else. Yeah, but
go for a run.
there's been times when I've literally just been sat there and I felt good. Maybe you have a drink or maybe you went out and you were just chilling for a bit, and then it just hits you,
Yeah,
and it's like you might have been fine, but then there's like something bigger at play, and all these things. Maybe it could be like trauma, it could be unresolved issues from the past. I don't know. Like it starts from a small thing and becomes a bigger thing, and you start like questioning everything, and you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
I find
And
that
then
interesting.
I always find, like, if you have that one down day and you don't talk to anybody, you don't do anything about it, you don't reach out, then you start thinking about things that you shouldn't even be thinking about. You're thinking, oh, what if this happens? It's never gonna happen. Like, but in the back of your mind it's like, what if it does happen? And then that escalates into thinking about other things. And, it's a vicious cycle.
Walk us through your journey with mental health, because obviously everyone has a different connection to their mental health. Some
Yeah,
people
I think
talk about it, some people don't. Like, what's your particular story? Let's understand a bit more about you.
I'm quite open with my mental health, which I think it's hard. I get why a lot of people don't like doing it, but it's like Paddy the Body made a perfect point in his UFC fight interview. I'd rather somebody rings me at 4 o'clock in the morning than getting a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning saying you've got a funeral in 3 days. You know, So I'm quite open about speaking about things. Like, I'd rather somebody come and speak to me about it. I'm not going to judge anybody. Like everybody has thought processes. Like, your mental health is as thin as a hair. Like, you could be absolutely fine, and then something happens and it breaks that hair. It takes a long time for our hair to grow back to stabilize things again.
Why do you think it's still so difficult for blokes to talk about it?
I think it's the stigma you're a man. If even if you look at like, marriages and stuff like that, if people say like, how's the marriage doing? How's the missus? Never ask how's the fella.
Damn, that's a good point, actually. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something I saw the other day which was all too real. I'm not a father, but I'm approaching that age.
Don't tell me
And
about it. We're getting old.
yeah, it was something like the sacrifices that dads make and how it's just kind of expected. And I think it kind of ties into what you were just saying there. Like there's this expectation and placed upon men a lot of the time. And here's the reality for anyone listening, because I know I have a predominantly female audience, and here and there I've spoken with guys about mental health and what it means to be a man and stuff, at least in my estimation. And I think like to a certain extent it's pretty fluid, but I think one of the things I've always noticed is the case is that level of expectation. It's like if you're telling your experiences, I mean, like I've been told before that it's seen as weakness, it's seen as it's like feminine, it's seen as a bad thing, and I'm like kind of thinking what you're thinking as well. Like,
Yeah.
well, it's 0 to 100. It's like I either talk about these things and you find it annoying and fine, or I don't talk about these things and then the worst happens. Because that's the reality. It builds up to that point because at every juncture, and that's the thing, it's not even like said, it's implied. Like in the work, I wanted to ask you about this. Like in your experience over the years, like how do you find let's say mental health and support or the lack thereof in the workplace? What's your experience of that then?
I think recently, like I've been doing bars for 18 years. Whenever I first started, I've always done hospitality. So whenever you first started, like it was kind of just get on with your job. If you don't, there's somebody else that will, you know. But in the last like couple of years, there's a lot like more help. Like there's a company called Bupa, which is free chat line. It's not just about mental health; it's about everything. If you need advice about anything at all, and we've got some posters like put up in the bar, and I've seen different venues that have posters everywhere. So that's a support line for people. And as management, I do check-ins with the staff.
Oh, cool.
Not work related, just a quick, you know, how you been? How's everything in your personal life? You don't need to tell me about it, but is everything okay? If you do need to talk, you don't need to talk to me. You can talk to a member of staff. But we're a little family. Everybody can talk to each other, and I think a lot more businesses, especially in like the alternative scene, have all started doing that, where they're looking after each other like a lot more and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely getting better. It needs like a lot more improvement, but it's on the right track that it's getting better.
Yeah, and that's good. It's good to hear. I got to say, I've not had great experiences where that's concerned. I've often got burnt out to the point where I can't function anymore. Like last year was a real kind of like wake up call for me because it got so bad that I felt that pretty desperate. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I felt like I was going mad. I
That's
was
when you start to like feel isolated because you're like, if you don't like your job, you have to stay in your job because if you don't stay in your job, you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your bills, and then
yeah.
you're stuck in a rut, and it's really really hard to get out of something like that.
I just feel like the level of pressure, like when you're in a job that's not good and you're not getting on with people and there's way too much pressure put on your shoulders and stuff. Like, yeah, maybe I didn't handle it well, but then everything I was saying was valid. It was true, but it was getting ignored or laughed at or whatever. And that's the thing, like, when I look at my life in general, like there's what I wish my life would look like, and then there's the sacrifices I have to make all the time to just live, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like hospitality is pretty brutal because of the hours and the demanding nature of it and how much it shifts. That was a big problem for me. It's the reason I'm leaving hospitality is because like I can't at this age deal with that anymore. Like I can't be doing 50, 60 hour weeks anymore. I can't deal with the, nights into mornings stuff. I can't deal with just the level of expectation and then what you get in return. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just not
And
worth it.
like
Like,
in hospitality as well, it's yeah, it's a job, but there's also that social aspect. You're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You're basically an actor behind the bar. You're making sure everyone has a good day, a good night. Then it comes to your day off and you're socially burnt out. If you want to go see your partner or whatever, you don't want to socialize. You know, you're just tired. Then you have to do the grown up stuff. You have to do your shopping, you have to do your cleaning, you have to do your washing. And there's not enough hours in the day to do it anymore.
dude, I feel exactly the same. Like, yeah. And funny thing about that as well. One of the reasons I like you, I don't know. I feel like there's a kindred spirit thing there. We both got Irish family and stuff, and um, my dad is a career man, barber by trade, and
You've done a good job at yours.
I just haven't seen him in 4 years. What do you mean? No, he's an introvert. You know,
Yeah.
he's comfortable around his people, but yeah, he's an introvert, and but
My
he
dad's exactly
does.
the same. He's got his select people that he'll go to the pub with on a Friday evening and have a few beers with them. Does what he needs to do during the week. But he'll happily just sit in a bar by himself or in a restaurant by himself or just like chill by himself and doesn't need that social aspect.
That's the thing though. Like I remember growing up, like thinking like why is he so tired? Like he's a barber, like that can't be too difficult. Like you do several haircuts a day. It's not too physically demanding. Like what's the issue? I never realized that the reason he was so exhausted was the socialization. Like, hey, how you doing? Like, he's got to remember all these different people.
Yeah,
He's got to like make all this conversation. And like this is the same as bar work. You got to be. You're not just serving drinks. You're someone's therapist.
yeah,
You're a bouncer sometimes. It's just there's so many elements to it. Like even just like awkward stuff. Like sometimes you're doing something on the bar, right? And maybe it's just me, but like you see someone come in, right? And you can like feel that pressure because you got to finish this thing, but they need to be served.
yeah,
And the length of time between you and acknowledging them and then taking that drinks order and you getting this thing done, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So eventually where you probably have to go, right, well, I can't do this thing. I have to serve this person, which is fine. And a lot of the time it's a quick thing, but sometimes it's not.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, I'll just have a Foster's. Okay, great. Whereas other times it's like, yeah, I'll get two Jaeger bombs, three Sex on the Beach. I'll have a Long Island iced tea. Fuck off.
yeah. Next thing, you're about to charge them, and can I get a Guinness with that, please? And you're like,
Oh,
you know.
duh. It's just pain. But no, but like, just from a psychological standpoint, you feel the pressure of it. It gets like, I don't know, I get anxiety about it.
It's like being on stage, you're working a busy Friday, Saturday night throughout the entire shift. Like you could have, over 1,000 people throughout the night coming in and you're the first person to see. So you're constantly being watched, which people don't realize that, you're behind the bar to think you serve beers. That's it. It's like every other aspect that you have to look at. So I think that's why hospitality is so demanding and strains so much. Is
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like it's the reason I've gotten out of it and I'm starting a job next month because I can't do what's required anymore because of that demand.
yeah,
And I will forever respect anyone who can deal with it and make it a career because it's so exhausting, I feel.
Yeah,
And obviously bringing it back to mental health, like that inevitably is going to take its toll on how you feel mentally. I mean, I think it's a bit better in like, because obviously you essentially working like a rock bar, so you're around similar-minded people. Like, yeah, there's that line: you're the customer, I'm the bar manager. Know the line, be respectful, all that. But like, you're in a comfortable space.
yeah. Like,
Um, like I've always felt
especially
a
like
little.
around this area, because you've been around this area.
Mm,
Like, you know, a lot of people know each other, so they'll come in for a beer, but you also come in for a conversation.
yeah,
It's not just I'm here to have a drink. It's like I know so and so is working today. I'll pop in. I'll say hello. And vice versa. Whenever I'm not working, I'll go to the other bar and stuff, and I'll be like, okay, I know this person's working. It's my day off. I'll go see how they're doing. And I think I don't know if I'm just being biased because of like my music taste and stuff like that, but I think within like the male scene and the alternative scene, it's getting a lot more common where when you see somebody, it's not the manly handshake. It's a fist pump, it's a hug,
yeah.
and you could be having a shit day and meeting up with someone that it's just a little hug, and it makes things feel a little bit better.
I think it's because like, especially our age, we grew up with that whole banter bullshit and gotta be a man, you can't be feminine, can't be this, can't be that. And I always rejected that. I was always annoyed at that, but I
Yeah,
accepted that that was like the majority of guys. And for the longest time, I only got on with women. I couldn't get on with guys because I just couldn't connect with anyone because I just couldn't be that person. I didn't get that.
yeah,
And then I don't know, as we've gotten older and we've discovered like like-minded people, it's like, yeah, no, you can hug your bro and that's fine and there's no issue and it doesn't make you any less of a man. If anything, it's a great thing. It's a
yeah.
powerful
I
thing.
think people who are the most comfortable in themselves are a stronger person.
100%.
you know, if you're like this dominant man who doesn't speak about things, like you've got demons, there's stuff going on in your mind that you don't even know how to express.
I think that's a really powerful point. Yeah, like it's the way you got to look at it. This goes to anyone who's listening, anyone who's struggling and refuses to talk about it. You're a ticking time bomb. And it could be a year, could be 5 years, could be 10 years, but it will happen. And if you don't address it now, the fallout will be so much worse when it does happen. Like and by happen I mean either breakdown or the worst. And that is why certainly why I take this so seriously. Um,
I think one of the most serious things as well is when people don't know how to deal with it. That's whenever self-destructive mode kicks in.
yep.
I've been there. I've been through self-destructive mode, and you don't care about anything else. You're doing stuff to stop yourself feeling like things, and then that makes it worse and worse because you're using like depressants to make you feel better. But then when you wake up the next day, it's twice as bad, it's three times as bad, it's four times as bad, and then you have to try to break that loop to get out. Where it's not easier, but if you speak to somebody, you're not going through the self-destructive mode.
How did you break that cycle? Especially considering the fact that, okay, you're a bar manager, you're surrounded by alcohol all the time, by people who want to get pissed up, have a good time, whatever, right? There's a lot of temptations. There's a lot of, well, I mean, look, if you're responsible with alcohol, I'm just saying this because I think it's an important point. It's like connected. I've had problems with alcohol in the past. It's never gotten to a point where I had to like go AA or something.
Yeah,
But bad. I had to draw a line. And mutual friends of ours have seen that, and I've had to be like, yeah, you know what, it's gone too far. And where I draw the line now is if I start feeling like out of control,
yeah,
I'm like, right, time to go home. Like, good example, last night I was out. and Lee was there. You know Lee,
Yeah.
and he was going to come have a few more drinks with us. And at that point, it was like 1 a.m. So we're going probably buddies, right? And then, like, not even 2 minutes later, he's like, Christian, I'm going home. I'm too pissed up. And I could tell he's like slurring at this point, but he's that mentally aware and
Yeah.
he's in control of it. He's like, yeah, no, it's time for me to go home. I'm like, yeah, get home safe, man.
I was actually out having a vape on my break, and I heard you doing your open mic. I could hear it from outside.
Sick, man.
So my break might have taken a little bit longer than what I should have, but it sounded good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, basically how I broke that cycle was
Yeah.
so I was working, I was still doing, you know, your normal day-to-day stuff that you're meant to be doing, but I wasn't eating properly because I was going out, and then, you know, I was like sleeping in, and then it's time to go to work. So I wasn't eating properly, and then, you know, I was going out after work again, and then the same thing, I'd sleep in, and then, you know, you might be having like maybe one meal a day, if even. One of my friends came up to me one day and was like, I don't want to sound horrible, but you look sick.
Wow.
And then I was like, it's time to stop partying. It's time to sort my head out. And, you know, literally just from someone that I respected saying that was enough for me to be like, I'm feeling sorry for myself. It's time to fix it.
Do you mind if I probe a little bit?
You know what I'm saying?
Do you mind if I probe a little bit? Like what?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. Why were you feeling that way? Like, because obviously these things are it's a gradual thing. And it's one thing to like not be taking care of oneself, you know, getting into that cycle of going out a bit too much, not eat. Like I've done it myself. But there is always that underlying thing.
So kind of what happened was this sounds a bit silly because like you obviously know me and stuff like that. But so whenever I moved to Manchester, I didn't want to move to Manchester. I was running a bar in Ireland. And the reason I moved here was me and my ex-girlfriend had moved here so she could do the final year of her university degree. So the whole time I was like, okay, we'll go. We're only going to stay for a year. That's fine. You know, I'll get a job over here and I'll work. And after the year finished, she had been offered a job in Manchester. So she was like, I want to stay. And I was like, okay, but I thought we were staying for a year. And, you know, my granny's quite old. So I was like, I don't want to spend time away. You know, I kind of want to be back home. And whenever something does happen, that's time for me to move on and do something else. But I ended up staying, and then I started to kind of resent her a little bit for that. Like my granny's still alive though, so that's a bonus. But yeah, I was kind of like, I don't. I know a lot of people in Manchester, but there wasn't really anybody I could ring up and be like, "Do you want to go for a coffee? Do you want to go play some pool?" So I have all these people that are trying to be my friend, but I'm kind of pushing things back because I don't want to be here. And then I was using that as kind of like an excuse to be like, you know, I don't want to go home after work because I don't want to be around this person because I'm that annoyed about it, you know. And then that was kind of how it started off as in that cycle, and then it just escalated, and then we ended up breaking up, and I moved out, and then I was like, "Oh, it's my day off. Then I've got nothing to do, you know. I live by myself. I can go do what I want." You know, first time in eight years that I wasn't in a relationship, so I was just like, "Yeah, I can go do whatever," and then I I still didn't realize that it wasn't her fault that I ended up doing stuff. I was using that as an excuse to act like that.
I think it takes a big man to acknowledge that as well. Like it's a lot. I can relate. I remember before I met my girlfriend, I was same as you. Like, oh, I'm a young man in the city. I have no responsibilities. Let's go nuts. And then
Yeah.
you know, there's always a consequence to that. There's always what that looks like. And there's been some times where I look back and I'm like ashamed. I'm like, wow, you know, Like it got
Next
this
thing is
bad.
like, I've got £20 left before payday. Do I do a food shop or do I buy a case of beer?
Well, that and like just people telling you like how you were. Like
Yeah,
that there was one time recently, like it was about a year ago, give or take, and someone I hadn't seen this guy in a while, and he came up to me in bunnies and he was like, "Hey, are we cool?" Like he looked a bit awkward, and I was like, "Yeah, what do you mean? Like it's good to see you." And he was like, "Oh, you don't remember, do you?" And then that just my stomach dropped when he said that.
yeah. It's just the fear kicks in. You're
Yeah,
like,
I was
what have I
like,
done?
God. And he's like, "You sure you want to know?" And I was like, "Yes." And nothing bad. Just I got drunk one night. I'm up in his face. I'm having a go at him about X, Y, and Z. The details are not important. The thing is, I'd drunk too much, so much
Yeah.
so that one of our mutuals was like, "If you don't shut up, I'm going to smack you in the face." And I was like, "Fair enough." And I remember like that, and maybe there was like one other night after that. I drew the line. I remember. Okay, here's a sobering. I know this is about mental health, but I think also inevitably talking about alcoholism is a factor in this. At least I don't know. It's a shared thing for us. It's something we've overcome. But I remember waking up the next day after that particular night, and I was just looking around my room, and there was just crap everywhere. Like my clothes were dumped on the floor. There was like an uneaten meal deal. There was just like random stuff I don't even remember having. Like I just remember looking around and just being like, "What is this? This is just pathetic."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's all good having a fun night out with your friends, but where do you draw the line? Like where, like the party can't be every night.
No. Like if you listen to it's Shaggy, It Wasn't Me, isn't it? If you listen to that acoustically and slow everything down, it's not a happy song.
Oh no.
That's deep as shit.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because whenever I was going through the party phase, my phone was ringing text messages every 5 seconds. What you doing? What you doing
Yeah,
today?
yeah.
Where you gonna be? I stopped doing that. No one texts us anymore.
It's
You know,
superficial. Yeah, because those people don't give a shit.
yeah, people are like, you're cool, you're fun, you go out all the time. But then they're probably thinking, oh, he's gonna go out and get smashed. It's gonna be funny. And it's like, no, it's not funny. It's actually quite sad. And then whenever you stop doing stuff like that, you find out who your real friends actually are that actually want to meet up and stuff. They're gonna say, let's go for a
1,000%.
coffee.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's a warning sign as well. I think for anyone that's a true friend of yours, like I just finished rewatching Breaking Bad for like the millionth time, and
Great
have
show.
you see it? Yeah. So for those who don't know, there's a character in it called Jesse. Basically, quick synopsis: it's about two guys making methamphetamine, cooking it together. One of them is older, in his 50s. You could argue he's having a midlife crisis and he's dying from cancer. So that's why he's doing it. The other guy was already cooking meth, high school dropout, that kind of guy. Um, very loyal to his friends, good, like, good with his friends. They look after him, he looks after them, etc. So there's a point where he's doing very well from the meth game. He's at his house, he's partying all the time, but he's partying all the time. The party never stops to the point where his place just starts resembling Skid Row. And there's a really interesting episode where his two closest friends are all about to head out the door with everyone else. And he's like, "Hey, what do you mean? Like, where are you going?" And it's like, "Hey, we gotta go home. We haven't gone home in like a week. Like this, we'll hook you up soon, but this is just too much. We need to just go home."
Yeah.
And it's funny, like there's so many examples of this I can see in media where people try and tell you what the right thing to do is. Like How I Met Your Mother, another series I love. There's an episode where Ted, the main character, talks about something his mum used to tell him, and it was nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., something like that.
That's why we close at 2 a.m.
Yeah, and it's true. Like I could every time I've stayed out, like don't get me wrong, I've had some good nights staying out till like 5 a.m. But the reality is, and as you recounted before, you lose the day the next day. You're going to sleep in. If you went to bed at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., you're waking up at probably 3, 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
So you're losing time. Secondly, you're probably going to have a hangover, especially if you're our age. um,
unfortunately, yeah.
yeah, and then there's the other thing as well. It's like it's all well and good doing that when you're 19, 20, 21, whatever. When you get to our age, I think you start to see there's like I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's like a crossroads. There's people who prioritize family, friends, work, whatever, occasional drinks, but they're pulling back a bit, right?
Yeah,
And then you've got people that just never do, and you see what it does to them physically. Just it's like I was in the pub the other day, and I was just looking across the bar, and there's this guy, he's a regular in his 50s, maybe. I was just staring, and I've seen him with groups before having a good time, but he was on his own, and he was just staring into this pint and just drinking it and staring. And I just thought, I never want to become that.
no,
And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with just having a drink on your own and chilling, right? But there's a difference between, a quick one, going home, versus now he's there because he don't want to be at home. He don't want to be with himself. And it's like what you were saying before. It's healthy to be home. Like I love being at home. Oh my god, I love being at home. I love going out, but I love being at home.
yeah,
It's you got to have a mixture of both. And also another thing as well that I'm starting to notice is like I've made a lot of friends through going out and stuff, but I worry like we all we do is drink together.
exactly, yeah.
Like when do we just I don't know go bowling or go to a gig together or have a coffee or whatever,
I
you
think
know?
that's like the English and Irish, like the English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh culture is what are you up to? Ah, no, yeah, not working today. Fancy beer,
Which in of itself is fine,
yeah.
but it's
It's
never
when you know
it's
when to draw the line. Say, if if you weren't working today, I wasn't working today, and you're like, fancy going out for a few beers. If you draw the line at 4 or 5, that's fine. You've had your food, you have a couple of beers, you go home, you get a bite of tea, you watch a movie, you go to bed. Cool. It's whenever like you meet up, go for a few beers, then the shots start. Then next thing you're in a bar that's open till 3 o'clock in the morning. Next thing you're in that specific bar that's open till what is it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. Next thing you're walking home, you're absolutely hammered. People are walking to work in their suits and stuff like that, and you're like, "What have I just done? I'm staggering about at 8 o'clock in the morning. Why am I doing that?"
been there so
And
many
at the
times.
time, it's yeah, same. At the
It's
time, it's so good, but you wake up the next day, you're like, "I've already been out for hours before that, and then I went to somewhere that's open even longer." So by the time I get there, I'm pissed. Who have I been talking to? What have I been saying? Who have I offended? And the fear starts kicking in. You might have been absolutely fine, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, shit, what have I done? And then you're like, I don't want to walk to the shop because I don't know what I've said to people outside. I don't want to go to work, but you have to go to work. And then, you know, that's when your mind starts playing games with you again. And that's where the vicious cycle happens where you finish work and to kill that feeling, you want to have a beer again just to make yourself feel normal. And then, that's when you need to know when to stop and not keep doing it.
I like to take like regular breaks, like just like a week off, or or just even like just mix it up, not drink at all, just have a Coke, whatever.
Yeah.
I've noticed friends of ours doing that, even not just like sometimes just to save money, it's just because pints are so expensive now. But yeah, and that's cool. I like that. Like I never I never come out because I just want to drink. I come out because I want to hang out with people and talk.
That's what
And
bars were invented for. Bars were invented for people to socialize.
yeah,
They weren't here to come out and see how many pints you can drink in an hour,
yeah,
which I think is a good thing that, like, hospitality have stopped publicizing happy hours and buy 10 shots for £10 and, you know, stuff like that, because you're trying to encourage people to excessively drink.
You know, it's interesting though. Like, it can be a really fun thing. Some of the best nights I've ever had have been drinking, but some of the worst nights I've ever had have also been because of
Yeah.
drinking.
Especially when you get to our age, this is where the crossroads happen. This is
Yeah.
where you make the decision. Like, I think I might know that guy that you were talking about the other day that you're saying. I'm not going to mention any names, but if it is the same guy, he said something really scary to me whenever I came back from Ireland. And it was basically, it was Christmas Day. I was by myself. I wasn't feeling good. I was feeling really shitty. Nobody had messaged me to say Happy Christmas. And I was like, I get that. You know, it's shit. Why didn't you meet up with some friends that were still in Manchester and stuff? And he was like, well, I didn't want to be a burden. And I was like, well, you could have messaged people saying, you know, Happy Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, yeah, but why didn't people message me? And I was like, I'm not being funny. You were by yourself. People were with other people. So, you know, it might have been 6, 7 o'clock in the evening where they might have thought, oh shit, so and so is by themselves. Maybe I should drop them a message. But, you know, I don't think it was the fact that you were by yourself. It was the fact that you couldn't go out.
Yeah, I think we're talking about someone else, but I know who you're talking about. And
Because he was kind of
yeah,
getting annoyed at me about me not messaging him. And I was like, dude, I wasn't even in the country. Like, I had my own stuff going on in Ireland over Christmas. So, you know, I didn't message anybody at Christmas time.
this is the thing. I understand some people don't have a family to go to at that time of the year, and it's fucking brutal. I
Oh,
don't know
it's
how else to
horrible.
put it.
Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah, for me, that time is family time.
Yeah.
Um,
I had to
it's
do it 2 years in a row because of COVID. I couldn't go home. So I stayed in Manchester and stuff. Luckily, though, there was people that I knew that couldn't go home as well. So we kind of just had our own makeshift Christmas, it was quite nice. But again, it's not the same as being with your family at that time.
it's just not. I don't. Was it a Christmas? I've done Christmas on my own during the pandemic. I It was either a Christmas or I think it might have been a Christmas actually with flatmates. But like you say, it was nice, but like it just cause wasn't the same at all. I was like, I barely know these people. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
As much as I don't want to watch Shrek for the 15th year in a row, I don't want to watch Ice Age for how many years in a row. It's like my granny wants to watch it, so it's tradition that, you know, we'll have dinner and we'll watch the movies that I don't want to watch. But, you know, if I can't go watch them next year, I'm going to want to watch them. So, you know, you need to, the stuff you don't want to do around that time, you still make the sacrifice to do it.
yeah, and but the family time is important, especially as you get older as well. Like, I just think it's really important to prioritize that time
Big
because
time.
you just don't know how long you're gonna get. You just don't know, you know.
I was also thinking, are you able to tag links in this video?
How do you mean exactly? Do you mean like
I was
for mental
thinking
health?
if we could tag Bupa as a link, just in case anyone who, like when we were speaking about it earlier, in case anyone does feel that they want to talk to somebody and they want to ring the hotline.
Yeah. I always in every show I always put like relevant information. So we'll put a bunch of links in the
Yeah, so
description and make sure people have access to that. Absolutely, man.
cool. And
Speaking of which, yeah, go on, go on.
anybody just watching that knows either of us, you know, like our inboxes are always open as well. You know, drop us a message.
Yeah, I'll say that as well. Like I'm a good listener. Um, More than happy to listen. I think the thing that I get frustrated about sometimes is I'll extend that olive branch to people and they don't extend it back, or when I'm in need, you know, they're not there, and so I'm a lot more hesitant to do that now. But
Yeah,
at the same time, if someone just reached out to me, I would help them for sure. Like I do what I can, because I get it. I've been there, you know. And the last thing I want to see is someone struggling, because it sucks. It really does. And I think a lot of the time, what people tend to forget as well is that you're in your own head. Everyone's in their own head. So it might not even be that people don't give a shit. It might just be that people are too caught up in their own little world that they
Yeah.
don't see you, which
I
is,
think
it is what it is. But
I think sometimes as well, whenever people are going through things, they know that they're sad or they're upset or, they feel anxious or they're feeling depressed, but they can't pinpoint what it is. So sometimes they don't know how to talk about it. So like I always like try to advise people, if you don't know how to talk about it, find someone that you're comfortable with. Just like meet up, go for a walk, like go for a coffee, go do something. And just being around another person sometimes, just by them talking, it might trigger what's actually affecting you. It might make it like you might be able to notice what's actually going on inside your mind.
yeah, I mean, it's the concept of empathy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being able to just be present, and not feel alone in those moments.
Like I've had times before where like I'll feel like shit. It is what it is. But just having like my girlfriend sat beside me watching a movie. We might not even be speaking about anything. We just sat watching a movie, and it makes you feel more comfortable. It makes things like a little bit easier. And the next thing, you feel a little bit better, and you might actually realize why you were feeling bad, or you were just having a bad day, or something.
I think what you were saying as well is really important about how people might not know how to talk about things. Like there are certain things that you just can't bring up in natural general conversation. Like, oh, by the way, I got abused. Like it's just not something you can really. You got to build up to that, or maybe it's still traumatic or it's ongoing, or it
Yeah,
happened in the past. But like I was in a really toxic relationship for years, and I would say it wasn't until many years later that I was able to talk about it candidly, because I was still processing it. I'd been gaslighted, I'd been manipulated, all this, right? So years later, as you find yourself changing and your perspective changing and you changing, you realize that, oh, fuck, this is what happened to me.
yeah,
And it makes it easier to talk about, but then you know what to say.
yeah,
Because when you're in it, it's not always obvious what the words are. Like for anyone who's trying to be there for someone, just keep in mind that it's never just that simple to just be like, here's what's happening to me, here's what's going on. Um, be patient with people, give people that time. Maybe it might take a few meetings, maybe it might just be a couple of quiet chill out days, and then eventually they might tell you. They may never tell you, but it might help.
yeah. That's a good point. Like if somebody was coming to tell me something, and they wanted to have a chat, and they were just about to say it, and then they were like, "Oh no, wait, actually, it's okay." Like never push it. Like if they're thinking about it, they probably are going to tell you. They're just trying to figure out how to express it. So it might be a week later, and they're like, "Actually, what I was going to tell you last week was," and they've like figured out what way they want to phrase everything. And but if you start going, "No, just tell me," they're going to back off. They're going to go into themselves. They're not going to want to talk about things, and in future they might not even tell you that there's something wrong.
Yeah, it's just very intrusive, very invasive, I feel, as well. Like, people confide in you because they feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
immediately when it starts feeling pushy or judgy or just whatever, like that immediately makes someone feel uncomfortable. And then of course they're not going to open up, just because why would you? Because then it becomes more about like, well, what's your game? Why do you want to know? just so you can
Yeah.
tell other people, so you can spread the tea, you know, or do you really give a shit? Because that's the other thing as well. Like, unfortunately, there are just people who thrive on that, and they're just looking for information so they can spread it around and stuff. And
Exactly. Yeah.
you know,
There's a lot of people out in the world that they pretend to want to be your friend and they're there for you, but they're just bored themselves and they just want to cause things, which, they're the worst kind of people.
I'll never understand that as well because like people are suffering. Like, yeah, why would you spread that around like it's gossip, like it's something to derive humor from? You know,
Yeah.
like I don't know. There's been times when people have shared things with me, and I'm like, I don't want to know, man. That sounds terrible. Like, I hope they're okay. You
Yeah.
know, because that's fucked.
I've had stuff that like people have told me, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, and I've never said anything to anybody about that because if they feel confident enough to talk to me, why would I spit in their face? You know,
Mhm.
uh, what happens if something happens a few years later and you've just told what they've told you, and then you get a phone call saying something's happened, and you think they couldn't talk to me because I told people what they told me, and you're gonna feel guilty. You're gonna have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Have you ever faced stigma for discussing mental health? And if so, how did you address it?
What kind of stigma?
Could be anything. Could be because you're a man. Could be in general, like not to talk about it. Could be any time where I don't know. Maybe it was just marked, or maybe you were told you shouldn't be doing it, or something like that.
I think when I was growing up in Ireland, my town's quite small. I think I've told you before, like the population's only like 1,500 people.
Oh wow.
So I don't want to use the word normal, but everybody was normal. Everybody dressed the same, they looked the same, they listened to the same music. There was nobody that was slightly different, but there was me and maybe five or six of my friends, like different age groups and stuff like that. But we dressed a little bit different. We had long hair. We painted our nails, and then next thing, you're weird. Why are
Mm.
you doing that? That's not normal. And I'm like, but what is normal? But it was really strange because whenever I was in school, I was on a football team, so I played sports. I done boxing, so I was doing combat sport as well. But I was also in a band. So I remember we played in a pub one night when I was like 16, and people were like, "Oh, your band's really cool." So next thing, I'm not the weird kid anymore. I'm the guy that people want to talk to because I play sports. I'm in a band. Now being different's cool. I think Stranger Things has like made being a little bit different really, really popular. Like when I was growing up, if you dressed like that, you were getting bullied in school. Now the bullies are dressing like that.
Literally, I was talking about this in a live stream the other day. When we were growing up, like you said, you get bullied. I was recounting this the other day that like I remember being on a bus and having people kick the back of my head and blow spitballs at me because of what? Because I had long hair. I had people, adults, by the way. I was like 14. I had adults, people in their 30s and 40s, screaming abuse at me across the street or in my face because I wore some eyeliner or some baggy jeans or whatever. People were horrible, fucking horrible back in the day. Just, I don't know. Like,
I seen this thing in school. I think I was like 16 years old, and the way my high school worked was we've got like a little canteen, but if if you want, you can still walk uptown and go to like a chippy or go to like the little restaurant that we have. It's completely up to you. You've got an hour to do what you want. But there was a girl. I'm not going to say any names, but there was a girl who was sat in the canteen by herself. She's eating her lunch, and she's got a can of Fanta just sat at the edge of the table. And this guy walked past, and he just knocked a can of Fanta off the table. She didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. She just kind of looked at her sandwiches and then just started crying. So I've always kind of used that as before you judge somebody or like insult somebody or anything at all, I've always used that as, how did that girl feel when that happened? If I do that, will it make people feel like that? Because it was just horrible saying something like that. Like, it just broke her. Like, it's a kind of fancy that the guy knocked over. It's not the end of the world, but it's the impact that it had. Like, nobody knows what's going on at home. Nobody knows what's going on in someone's like personal life and stuff. And that was just a tipping point.
Yeah.
You
Oh, it's a
know,
metaphor, isn't it? For your life. Like I've had that where when I was struggling last year, or even over the last few years, there'll be people that are like, well, why don't you just do this? Why can't you just do this? Why isn't it like this? And it's like, because life is just not that simple. And sometimes you get pushed to a point where you're like, actually, yeah, you know what? I'm really, really struggling and this is not helping. And the little
yeah,
things like, you know, oh, my uniform's torn and I can't afford to replace it, or this just got dirty, or I've got no more money to buy food at the moment, or all things that happened to me last year. It just gets too much, and then someone knocked your drink over. Oh well, fuck! Like everything's fucked,
yeah.
and
But another
that's
thing, like, if life isn't tough, it doesn't make us who we are. If life is simple, everyone would be boring.
it's
You know,
true.
you
It's
learn the
true.
characteristics and stuff from dealing with things that are hard.
It is true, but I do think sometimes life has to give a little. If it just
Yeah,
feels like take, 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 then it makes you think like, what's the point? Or at least I don't know. In my experience, it's gotten like that.
I think the last couple of years, it's got like that. Like, whenever like I get my wages, I'll pay my bills, get everything sorted. But then, on a Sunday evening, I'm considering feeling bad if I buy myself a takeaway because I'm like, should I be spending this money?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have this issue all the time. I mean, I guess it's like anything else, isn't it? It's balance. Do I have enough money to pay the bills, go out a little bit, have savings, take my partner out, etc. Um, do I go out maybe once a week or several times a week? What does that look like? It's the balance thing.
Yeah,
In your mind what's too far and what's just right. You feel it, you find your own rhythm. But I don't think anyone should ever feel bad about spending money unless it's like not yours to spend, something like that. Um, oh yeah, if it's becoming something where I've had this in the past where I was struggling financially, but I was out having a drink, and it was a destructive thing where I was kind of like half like fuck it because I was like I'll figure something out, but then you
I get
see it,
that. I've had that before.
yeah, you see it the next day and you're like, oh, well, that was stupid, wasn't it? Because now we're worse off. There's more stress, and your little night out has now cost us dearly. And I think sooner or later you just got to be an adult.
Yeah.
To put it
Like,
bluntly, yeah.
it's weird. I never believed this whenever I was a kid. Like, I'd be talking to older people in their 50s and 60s, and they were like, whenever you're in school, it's the best time of your life. Make use of it. When you get older, it's going to be a lot worse and stuff. And then, they'd be
Huh.
saying, okay, my body's 60 years old, but my mind isn't. In
Yeah.
my mind, I'm still young. Now I'm 33, saying, and I'm like, I completely get that. In my mind, I'm still 20, 21 years old. My body doesn't do that, but
I forget my age sometimes because, like yourself, I feel so much younger. I feel like early 20s as well. But then I'm reminded that I'm older because of the people around me are younger and they don't get the references, or they're just you see the lack of experience and you become like almost like a mentor or like a older brother figure. I'm not quite dad territory yet, but you're getting there. Um, and I like that. I like being able to give people advice, but I'm also like feeling old. I'm like, damn, man, like, oh, when did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Feels like it was, a week ago I was 18. And then I blinked and it's like, yeah, nice.
I mean, it's kind of it's a bittersweet thing, but I think as long as you age gracefully and you accept your age, I think it's good. Like I've really started to connect more with people my own age now, and I never used to, but now I feel that sense of like, I don't know, community almost. It's like, yeah, man, we remember how it was, and this is us now, and isn't it cool? You know, it's we made it.
I think when I think about life as well, like a massive question that always comes up, just randomly is, would you like to be a kid again?
No,
I'd like to be a kid again when I was a kid.
yeah.
I wouldn't like to be a kid again in this year, the last couple of years. Everything has just, it's crazy. Like kids don't go out and play football or, play 40-40, like, even knock the around.
I know exactly what you mean. Like the older I get, the more I'm pulling back. Like you can find me everywhere online, every social media, but I don't sit there doom scrolling. I don't sit there interacting particularly. Like I do what's necessary. I have fun with the technology, but ultimately I'm regressing and getting more and more interested in anything that is not online, anything that makes you feel more grounded and closer to earth. Because it's just it is kind of sad. Like, oh, all your favorite films and music is available at the touch of a button. That's great. But then there's no more physical media. There's no more discovering like a shitty B movie out of nowhere in the back end of a record shop. There's none of that sense
Yeah.
of journey, you know? And I mean, like, take, for example, us going out and finding places to drink, like, and hang out. I always look at any place that I go to now and I'm like, does it have real character or is it that pseudo created character? Is it just, owned by a Starbucks and they're just trying to pose as a coffee shop or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's that's dying. Everything's becoming very gentrified, everything's becoming very just packaged and I think it's really important for people to understand that technology is great in small doses. Like I honestly feel like we had it best when we were growing up in the 2000s. There was
Yeah, definitely.
just the right level of technology, like MySpace and Bebo was just a bit of a laugh, but we didn't spend all of our time on it. You
No, it
know?
was it was a treat. Like,
Yeah.
you go to school, you eat all your dinner, you get an hour playing the Sega Mega Drive. I still
Nice.
have one in my attic back home.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the joy of it all, wasn't it? It was a treat. It was something to look forward to. And now someone said it to me the other day and I couldn't get my head around it, but it's true. Like you're just you're contactable at all times, which almost makes it like you have to give an excuse for being busy.
Yeah, like when's the last time somebody messaged you and said, "Do you want to go do something?" and you didn't make up an excuse. You just said, "No, not today."
Yeah. I normally if it's like I don't check messages sometimes. I leave it. And I think that's important to do that.
Yeah.
Like maybe I don't have to check all my messages today. Maybe I don't have to check my emails today. Maybe I'm just not available today. That's it. I mean, when I look at that with other friends, I do get concerned sometimes. I'm like, I hope everything's all right. But then again, maybe they're just not online, which is good.
I don't know if you can hear the background noise, can you?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to get quite busy in here at the minute now, so I'm starting to struggle to hear.
No worries, man. What's
Do
the
you wanna schedule doing a part two?
part two? Yeah,
Yeah, so we can
let's
split it
do
up
it.
in part one, part two, and then you can edit it all together and stuff.
So we're gonna do a mega show. All right, man. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's do it. Right. So we
Hello.
have time traveled into the future. So for the people that will be eventually watching this and listening to this, you'll be, oh, why have they changed clothes and locations? And what the fuck? Well, we started recording the first part, and then because Eddie's a very busy man, he had to go, which is fine. I was like, we'll just reschedule. And then wait, how far into the future is it
Uh,
now?
that must have been like a month ago, was it? Something like that. We would have got it done until a kid got really interested why I had a tripod and sat down beside me in the bar and then decided to play some games on her phone quite loud. And then I was like, I can't hear anything. So
It's no biggie anyway. In a way, it's kind of good because when I was trying to think back, I was tempted to sit through the first part and relive it, but from what I remember, it was mostly you sharing your story, right? But which is great, and you know we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and we had some some good stuff there. But it's interesting as well because a big reason why Eddie's not been available is he's just had like a lot of fucking shit going on, personal stuff, and I felt quite weird. Like I was like in a situation like that, I don't feel like it's very. I don't know what the word would be. It's just not like nice or becoming to be like, hey, what about this show, right? Because like you know, like someone's going through some shit and that's your friend, right? Um, so I was like, well, it'll happen when it happens,
the
and
hard part was we were getting dates where we were both off work and then stuff was just happening. Like,
yep.
the night before something had happened and then I'm like, shit.
Well,
Can we do
it's
next week?
yeah, because you said I won't say it here because it's personal, but when you told me that, I was like, oh fuck, I hope you're okay, man. And in my head, I'm like, oh fuck the podcast, like you know,
Yeah.
priorities, right? Um, but the other side of it, right? So I said, well, I probably said this at the beginning of this show, the first part. I don't remember. Um, I planned a series of shows. So in the intervening space, I have already interviewed two other people, and I got one more coming this weekend. So that'll be along with this show, that'll be like a whole month's worth of podcasts. I'll probably do a little show myself. Maybe I'll make it a week. I don't know. Um, in any case, this is the first show. So and like shout out to Ner. He was like, "Hey, when's the show coming out?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
I
I
do
don't.
apologize, everybody. My bad.
Nah,
My
nah,
bad.
nah, nah, nah. Not at all, not at all. But no, but the reason I bring it up is I think that is kind of the reality of mental health and life is like you can be doing all right for a while and suddenly a bunch of shit just happens and it tends to happen like in threes. I've noticed as well.
So the saying goes, yeah. It's always in
It's
threes.
it's like what can you do? Like there's been times we've been standing there together and we're like smoking cigarettes and having a chat, and you tell me like some big thing, and I tell you a big thing, and we just kind of stare at each other and like, well, fuck, yeah.
Yeah.
What can you do? At this point, what can you do? There's nothing you can do.
No, it's just you just get on with it and be there for each other, and like something that I was going to bring up today was whenever we bumped into each other last week, um, it
Hmm.
was during the day, I think.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah, so we were kind of just chatting, and then that older guy was there, and we were talking
Yeah.
about like just day to day stuff, but like it was very hard to talk because he liked to talk a lot, so it was hard to like say anything. But I could say that we were both on the same kind of wavelength. And he was kind of getting what we were talking about. We were kind of getting what he was talking about. But you can see generationally how things have changed. Like the things he was talking about, like he was talking about how he looks after his mom and stuff like that. And he was getting really annoyed because his sister was away and how he had to go and do it, and it was ruining his life. And we were kind of like, but dude, it's your mum, like, you know she's not going to be there forever.
Mm.
And then whenever I think you mentioned something about like working class, he got so defensive on how he came from nothing to how he's a working class guy, and we were like, that's not what we mean. you
So
know
that really fucked me off, right? Because, and I'll tell you why. Some people don't fucking listen.
he didn't
We
listen.
no, I brought basic. Okay, side note. So there's this shop down or cafe down south, and it's like a chain that simulates working class culture or working class cafes. So it's the same cafe that we all grew up with. Greasy, shitty, but the food's great, service is fantastic, and you love it, and you probably spent many, breakfasts there, hungover, whatever, right? We've all got them. Anyway, I grew up working class. You grew up working class. We're both working class. I don't tend to bring it up a lot, but the only time I ever tend to bring it up is if someone accuses me of being posh, and I'm like, well, actually, fucker. And then I start telling them stories from when I was growing up, and suddenly their jaw drops. And they normally shut up after that. So I bring up this story because I'm like, hey, isn't this weird? Like they're trying to simulate the culture. And he just hears the word working class, and he turned and looked at me. I remember this and was just like, what's the problem with working class? And I was like, none. What? I
Yeah, he got so defensive, and
yeah,
then
and then
he
and then he just
started,
oh
he started bringing up how like he grew up with like all his brothers and sisters, and it was a two-bedroom house, which people of that generation, that's what happened.
mm,
We didn't say anything about that. We weren't disagreeing with that. We were like, dude, think about it this way, that's how you start off. Now, you're married, you've got your own kids, you've got your own house, like you've made a good life for yourself. That's basically what we're saying. And
some
he
people.
just, I don't know, it was just, he was so defensive.
It's very simple. Some people just want an audience.
Yeah.
He came over to us because he wanted to show off. For example, he brought up boxing.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Eddie has done quite a lot of boxing in his younger years. We were actually supposed to do a fight before he got injured recently. Not me and him,
Yeah.
but he was going to have a
No.
fight, and we're like, "Oh, great!" And I was going to come
Down
along.
back alley, let's
Yeah,
go.
no, let's fucking go. Um, so yeah, boxing's part of who he is, and I don't know if this guy sensed that or he's just asking questions. I think it was more because of where you were from, and he was like, "Oh," and then the conversation just kind of went from there. Um, but to me, I'm not trying to take the piss, right? I'm just saying this is my perspective of spending many years growing up, being around my dad and his workmates and all that, and pub stories and guys showing off and embellishing stories or whatever, trying to look tough. This guy, to be put into perspective, is 69 years old. So yeah, there is a generational difference. We're young lads by comparison. We've seen and done things. We're in our 30s, so we're not like, you know, blue chip prospects anymore. We're just prospects.
Although we try to be
We
sometimes.
try to be. So, I just felt like he's kind of showing off. He's like, yeah, this is what it was like, and it's like that to me is something that's changed.
So how
This,
before you came over, I think I was there before you, I think.
yep,
So I think I was on my way to Aldi to do a food shop, so I popped in for a quick drink, and I was chatting to the girl behind the bar, and he heard my accent. So
right, right,
he
right.
walked over, he was like, "So what part of Northern Ireland are you from?" And I was like, "I'm from just below the border. I'm from Southern Ireland, but I'm from, very close to the border, so I've got a Northern accent." And then he told me that, back whenever he was in the army, he did a lot of like stints over in Northern Ireland, and he was just kind of talking about that. The guy's quite a lot bigger than me, so he started saying, I've done this, I know these people. The town I'm from is quite a rough town, so I knew the people he was talking about, and then I knew, their kids and stuff. And then he was like, "Oh shit, this guy actually knows what he's talking about." And then he started talking about how So there's a famous boxer from my town, Brian McGuigan. So he started saying how he knew famous boxers from Manchester and how he used to spar with them and stuff. And then that's when I brought up that I'd done boxing for 12 years back in Ireland. And because he was quite a bit bigger, he was kind of talking about, your stances and how to fight and stuff. And I was like, well, I'm ambidextrous, so I use both stances. And then he was like, oh, this guy actually does know what he's talking about. And he's not just,
See,
making things up.
this is interesting because I remember I was witnessing all of this as it was being said, but I did not take it in the way that you did. I just saw it as like two guys shooting shit about boxing, and he seemed really interested. But you obviously took it as this guy's trying to test me. I'm having to prove myself here, but I
Yeah,
have nothing to. That's interesting. Like just about perception. How do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying like that totally could be it. I just didn't pick up on that personally, but
that's why I
um,
kept saying to him, I was like, if you watch my natural stance, both my feet are just, apart because that's just, it's a welcoming stance. It's not defensive. But, if you do get defensive, that's whenever your foot changes. And then he was like, oh, yeah, it is. And I was like, because you're bigger than me and stuff, and you're trying to be a manly man, you're trying to assert dominance in the conversation by doing this kind of stuff. And I was just stood smiling at him like, yeah, cool. you know.
well, again to the generational thing, like I don't know, our generation just isn't like that. We grew up with people around us like that,
Yeah.
and I guess I mean my takeaway was always that I can take care of myself, but like I'm not going to walk around playing big man. I've seen people that do that, and quite frankly, I'm sick and tired of it. And also, just it's just idiotic. Like anyone who's a real fighter doesn't do that.
No.
like just because it's like rule number one. Like it's better to make your opponent think you're weak and underestimate you than it is to walk around like yeah. It's always the people that protest the most that are the ones that either can't fight and have never swung before in their entire life, or that just yeah they might win a few, but then they'll just get absolutely wrecked by someone or worse. I've seen it happen before, and I'm just like, you. And I don't know, like we were talking about this as well, like how often, because we're regulars in this spot, often it'll be up to us to kick out people, um, like during the day or when there's no bouncers around. And it's never physical. It never needs to get to that point. And often we just stare at the person until they leave, or we just quietly suggest that maybe they should leave.
Yeah, ninety
you
percent
know.
of the time, like this is what I was saying to you the other day whenever we were having a beer. If you put 10 people in a room and try to stop two people from fighting, they want to fight because people are watching.
Yep.
If you take the audience away and say, right, if you want to fight, go down the alleyway, come back in 10 minutes, knock on the door, and I'll let you back in. They're gonna go down and talk. They're not gonna fight.
And this is an interesting segue because we are talking about having an audience. We brought it up with that guy. We brought it up in that sense. It's like I feel like with mental health, a lot of the time, there are people that genuinely need help and want to talk about these things, and maybe don't feel like they can. And then there are people that want an audience, and actually, it's bullshit. Like I'll give you an example. There's someone that I know, and they're one of those people that like will put the odd status, like continuously put Facebook statuses out. Don't get me wrong, I'm guilty. I've done it when shit's got too much to handle. But the difference is, I did it when I was like at the end of my tether, and life is like it's ridiculous, and there's like 1,500 things going wrong, and I'm like, fucking help me. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I need help, guys. And maybe that is the wrong way to go about it. I don't know. But this person, it's like, it seems like every other week it'd be like, oh, life's great. And then like 2 days later, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Or, like when you were a teenager and you used to do those statuses in like MSN chat or whatever, and or your Facebook status, and it would say like, it was quite obviously about someone, but, And then people would comment and be like, "Oh, what's happening? Oh, I'll DM you. I'll message you. I'll let you know." Yeah,
Yeah,
because they just didn't have the balls to just say the person's name outright. But I always looked at that like this is attention. That's what it is. It's attention seeking, and it annoys me in the sphere of mental health because that's a serious thing. And I think it sometimes looking at the reactions to someone who's not necessarily faking it, but like embellishing things, or maybe they're making something bigger than it really is, or whatever. Um, I feel like sometimes that can put off people who really do need to talk and really do have like serious problems. It can put them off wanting to do that. Um, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I
yeah, because
feel,
I think another way as well. Like, I'll see a status. There's a few people I know who do stuff like that, and they think they're depressed. They're having a bad day.
yep.
Like there was no milk in the shop. Shit. Now I'm gonna make a status and say how bad my life is. You're not depressed. Yeah, you're upset about something, but then people will say like they'll say it and they'll say like people's negative reactions to it, like they are looking for attention, and then they do have something serious going on, and they're like, I can't ask now because they're gonna think I'm looking for attention now.
Yeah. I've noticed a lot of people will jump and try and use the whole I'm depressed, I'm so depressed. And I think everyone has felt a degree of depression probably in their life, like a
Oh, definitely, yeah.
intense sadness, something like that. But I never forget this as long as I live. The first time I actually learned what depression is, I remember sitting and thinking about it and going, then I've never had depression. So the way it was explained to me was one day, it could be random, it could be as a result of a long period of time where you've just been dealing with a lot of things. One day, it'll just hit you, you'll be in bed, and you won't want to move. You won't have any emotion at all. You just have nothing. No energy, no motivation, nothing. And then that will continue for who knows how long. Often when you hear people talk about supporting a friend who's depressed, they'll often say like, "Ah, I don't know what to do. They won't eat, they won't sleep, they're just uninterested, unmotivated. Da, 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 da." When I heard that for the first time, I was like, fuck me. This is like it because it's all to do with brain chemistry. Um, as the name suggests, it's depression of the brain, if I remember correctly. So it's like something in your brain, a chemical imbalance, which is causing you to be like that. Because if you think about it, I know how it sounds quite simplistic how I'm putting it, but like, when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, yeah, it's a new day, let's get up, let's wash, let's have a coffee. Like, you just do it. You're like, yeah, you got that zip, I guess.
Yeah.
But when you're depressed, you don't have that. And so to throw that to what we've just been talking about, when I hear people say they're depressed, I'm like, if you were, you wouldn't be making this status right now. You'd be AWOL. We
Yeah,
wouldn't.
you wouldn't be so openly talking about things.
But that's not to say you shouldn't talk about things. Absolutely, you should. If you feel that you're depressed, I think it's really important to get on top of it as soon as it starts, because it can spiral to a point where it gets like really difficult to reverse it. And I mean, it's not a one size fits all. Everyone's different. Some people require, CBT. Other people need a more of a medical solution because, as I said, chemical imbalance. You might need pills for that. But again, that's where you leave it up to the doctors and you try to work with them and figure it out for you specifically. Um, I think in a lot of cases, when you look at like getting to that point where you've been depressed or you're heading that way, it's like we discussed in the first part and the subsequent conversations we've had with each other about mental health. Like it's stages. It's like one thing after another. Like, okay, I've been working too much. I don't have any time for myself. this thing has happened to someone I love or a friend or a family, and this is putting stress on me. And now I've got to go to work, but I'm thinking about this, but I've got all this shit going on, and it's just one thing after another after another. Oh, what's this big bill? Oh fuck, I don't have enough money for that.
Yeah.
It's just, and it builds up, and I think like to the point where you feel like you're fit to burst. I remember I did a stream last year. I don't cry. I don't. I do, but I don't. Not often. It's quite rare.
Yeah.
But I couldn't hold it in anymore, and I just cried on stream, and it was pretty embarrassing.
There's
Everyone
nothing
was
wrong with that. Like,
no, there
you
was
know,
not. There's not. But I just it was
sometimes
like
a good cry makes you feel better sometimes.
yeah. I looked at it as just like this. This has to end at some point soon. And it did. It got better, but I think, and this is like almost like the thread that binds it all. Um, because one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about mental health was like men's mental health specifically. When you think about that older gentleman that we met in the pub, 69 years old, do you think he ever talks about mental health?
No.
Probably not.
Did you
Yeah.
see how he reacted whenever his sister rang him saying that she wasn't going to be there to look after uh, their mum? That he would have had to do it, even though she only lives around the corner. Apparently, he got so angry. Like,
I mean, I don't know if that comes from a place of selfishness or if it just comes because to be fair, caring for someone is a lot. Like, you know,
it's
what I mean,
tough, yeah.
yeah, that's full on. That's a job.
And again,
Um,
I don't know, what
yeah.
specific she needs or, whatever. But he got so annoyed because she had to go to a different city and he was complaining how everything was left on him. And his first reaction was, if that was my brother, I'd punch him straight away. That was the first thing he said. And I was thinking, it's your brother. Why would you want to punch him? Because you have to look after your mum.
I don't know, man.
You know,
I think
that was his way of not showing his emotion about like how he had to deal with it. It just became anger and violence because he probably didn't doesn't know how to actually show his emotion.
it's definitely a generational thing.
Yeah,
I guess when he was growing up, with what he was exposed to and how he learned to deal with the world, at no point could you show emotion and show how you really feel, which is crazy to think about. Um, because in this modern world, you're encouraged to do so, whether or not it's the right thing to do. I mean, we spoke a little bit about the workplace and stuff like that. Um, I get it. I have mixed feelings about it too. Like, for example, I would never ever tell anyone in a workplace that I was dealing with mental health issues. I'd never tell HR. I'd never do that. A, because I don't believe they do anything. B, because I feel that it would be used against me. But then again, like I don't know. I've done this show for many years. I've spoken about all sorts of things. I wouldn't change what I do to suit some company or some brand or whatever. Like, if you don't want me, you don't want me.
yeah,
And I think with mental health, like, okay, this will sound crazy, but I feel like mental health, like a lot of things, is like marketed or like mental health awareness. So instead of it being like, "Hey, we're here for you, we support you, da 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 da, speak out, etc." Right? That in of itself is great, but I feel like it's just used, it's just a marketing thing. Like mental health month, for example. Like how many people were actually helped?
yeah. You see like posters everywhere and stuff like that, but like if you walk around town, you don't see like any like little pop up stalls
Yeah,
or
yeah, like a
things like that.
booth. Like
Yeah,
a bit like, hey, come talk to us for 20 minutes.
even if you don't want to talk to us, we can give you some information of where to talk to in private
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I guarantee that would get some people thinking about it at least. Because,
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, go on.
even if they didn't go and talk, you're gonna have like, a big like uh what do you call them? Like a big board that'll have all the information in. And as you're walking past, you're on your phone, you're texting somebody, you might take down the information. So whenever you get home and you're by yourself, you've just seen it. So if you don't want to talk, the information's there, and you can see people are like out and trying to talk to people and stuff, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they actually do care. Maybe they do want to try to help. You know,
And that's the thing. We're obviously a product of our experiences. Like, I was always against talk therapy because I don't know if I said this in the first part, so I do apologize. But when I was at uni, I attended a session. I was in a toxic relationship at the time. And it's funny when you look back at things because there were so many red flags, and that person could help me, and they did nothing. I basically sat there for I'd waited for half an hour. I finally got in this room. I don't know what to do. I just needed to talk to someone and figure what the fuck to do. And I felt alone and scared and like this just all over the place 21, 22 year old. I'm just like, the fuck do I do? And I've never spoken to a therapist.
yeah.
So I don't know what to expect. I've heard the stories, but I'm like, what do I do? And I go in, I cry my heart out to this woman while she just sits there with a notepad and just looks at me with the kind of stern look. And then it was not funny, but it is funny now. So I cry my heart out for like 30 to 40 minutes, right? And she says, "Oh, Christian, that's the end of our session now." And I'm like,
Okay.
okay. And then it was one of those like, you ever been in a situation where you're just kind of shocked and you're being picked up and you're like walked out of a situation, you're just like, you kind of like flabbergasted by it, like,
Yeah,
oh,
like as it
okay.
happened.
What? And she just murmured some shit about like, oh, if you want to book another session, here's the details. Da 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 da. Door shuts, and I'm like outside, and I'm just staring at the wall, like, well,
What do I
that
do now?
was yeah, that was pointless. I just cried to a stranger for 40 minutes, and she didn't do anything. I was like, is that what therapy is? Like, no wonder people fucking hate it.
Yeah,
Like what?
like
But
I'm not against therapy
no,
or anything like that. Again, everybody's different.
yes.
Sometimes people don't need people to speak back. They just need to offload everything, get everything out in the open, and then they might see things a different way as they've spoke about it. Me personally, if I was going through something, I'd rather talk to someone I know, someone that I'm close with, like, my girlfriend or, some of my friends or something like that. Because in my eyes, I know me as me, but I don't see what other people say. So,
Interesting. Can you
uh,
expand on that a little bit more?
so like, uh, so how I see me is how it is in my head. This is how I portray myself. But I could have like characteristics that I don't say in myself that other people say. So,
Has there
like,
ever been a time when like a friend turned around to you and said, "Okay, hey, so this is happening with you. What's the deal?" And you were just like, "What?"
yeah, there was one time that like maybe like think about a lot of things. Weirdly, it was whenever me and my ex girlfriend were breaking up. We were together for like 8 years. She's the reason I moved to Manchester and stuff. She was finishing her uni degree in Manchester, so I moved along as well. And it was a mutual breakup. Everything was sweet. We're still friends. We still talk at
Oh, cool.
Christmas or like birthdays and stuff like that. Or if she's in Manchester, she'll pop down and say hello or whatever. But as we were breaking up, she was like, "There's just something really special about you. Like you can walk into a room or a group of people, and people just generate towards you, just to talk to you. You might not even have said anything, but next thing you're having a conversation with like five different people. I never thought that. I thought I was quite quiet. So
Hmm.
then, like, I was never like a shy kind of person. I was always kind of confident, but I never thought that of myself in that light. But once you said that, I was like, maybe there is different things about me that I don't notice or I haven't understood yet and stuff like that.
I'm always like terrified of what people say behind my back, so I just choose to just not care and not be interested at all. And in fact, most of the time, I assume people never talk about me. I'm like, I'm not important enough to be spoken about. So I get surprised when someone says like, "Oh yeah, they were saying this, that, and the other about you." Not like necessarily negative. Just I'm like,
Yeah.
really? What? I entered someone's brain for more than a minute. What? But I know what you mean. And like, I don't know. I always get a bit uncomfortable with compliments because I'm
Yeah,
just
compliments are
me.
hard.
Well, I mean, I'm just being me. I'm not a perfect human being. I'm deeply flawed. I work on myself. I try my best. Um, I try to just be a good person and do right by people. That's my focus. And
Yeah,
if
if
I
I can
fuck
make
up, I fuck
somebody,
up.
if I can make one person smile a day, I think
Yeah,
I'm doing okay.
absolutely. Let's throw some more mental health questions your way. This is from Spanish Alex.
Oh shit.
How the fuck am I still alive? Asking for a friend.
Okay, Alex. Stickman has given you the power to be alive.
These are
No,
inside
it's
jokes. No one will understand.
yeah, yeah. We went to a wedding one time. There was a guy with a stick outside trying to uh, get people to pay him to take pictures and stuff like that. The guy loved Spanish Alex. The guy absolutely hated me for no reason. I didn't even speak to the guy. It's a long story. It's a funny story.
Why do they call
But
him Spanish as well? He's Greek. What the fuck?
damn.
I still don't know. I know he's got this nickname and apparently he doesn't like it. I don't know. But we all call him that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because I remember the first time someone said it, they were like, oh, Spanish Alex. And I'm like, well, sometimes they call him Spanish George. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's not his
Yeah.
name either. What? But
Yeah.
it's just insider jokes. I don't know.
So I've known Alex for a long time now. I've known Alex for about 7 years, longer than me and you've known each other.
Oh,
And
for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Alex
I'm
has
a
never
newbie.
changed. The entire time I've known Alex, he has always been the same. You know, he walks into a room, he just wants to have a laugh. He just wants to have fun. He makes jokes. You know, he's loud, but he's nice.
Mm.
You know, he has like he always has a good thought. You know, he'll make jokes that might be a little bit controversial sometimes, but he doesn't mean any harm by them. It's just his demeanor. You know, mm, Alex, I don't know how you're still alive, man.
Yeah,
But I'm really happy you're still alive.
none of us know how you're still alive. But please stay alive. And I
Yeah,
will say this, man, fucking relax a bit. All right, relax,
yeah.
please,
I don't want to
relax.
be. I don't want to be getting text messages at 5 o'clock in the morning asking where do you live because you won't wake up anymore. You know, you need to chill it out a little bit. Yeah, go out, have a pint. You know, have fun. But dude, what's in your bag?
Oh
That's what I
yeah,
want to
he's always
know.
got a backpack. What is in the fucking bag?
That's what's keeping him alive. His bag is keeping him alive. You disconnect that bag.
Imagine if it
Don't
was
worry.
something really weird, like a bag of rocks or something. Just
Yeah.
like
It turns out he's trying to be fit, so carries around a heavy bag of rocks.
that would be a really clever way of doing it, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, Alex, stay alive. We all love you.
When was the last time you cried?
Last time I cried. Probably not that long ago. I think it was like last week sometime. Um, I don't think there was anything necessarily wrong with me. I think I've been doing okay recently and stuff, but I am quite open with my emotions and stuff. You know, I have no issue with like getting upset and stuff like that. And I think I was watching like a reel on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, and it was something that just kind of hit home, and I was like, shit. And it wasn't like, I wasn't like hysterical or anything. It just kind of brought like a tear to my eye. I was like, okay, yeah. I think it was like one of them like silly reels where like, the soldier comes back after being gone
Yeah.
for a couple of years and like, his kid runs up and like they're hysterical and stuff. And there was like some like sad song playing in the background, and I was like, imagine how that kid's feeling getting to see their dad again, you know. And then I was like, oh shit, why am I tearing up to this to people that I don't even know?
I get it sometimes as well with those reels. Um, no, it's the same reason. It's all been manipulated to make me cry, and I know, but fuck it.
Yeah. But then I had a really good night's sleep after that. I woke up, I made some breakfast, and then, I was absolutely fine the next day. I had a really good day and stuff. So
Yes,
sometimes
it's,
showing that little bit of emotion, it helps massively.
yeah. This is something I don't often hear people talk about. Once you finish crying, you do actually tend to physically feel better.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's just a release thing, but like I've always felt like when you've like, fully got the tears out and you're kind of just like, huh, well, I can't do that anymore. So I guess move on. Yeah, keep going. I don't know. You mentioned there about feeling comfortable talking about these things. Have you ever faced like stigma for discussing mental health? Obviously, I know it's not the sort of topic that people tend to just bring up in general conversation, but like, let's say you're reaching out to someone and maybe they're just like, I don't know, they're giving you a bit of stick for it or something like that. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
not whenever I've reached out. Like I've done it a few times where people that I know of in the scene, I don't necessarily know them personally. I'm not friends with them, but I've seen them around. And they might have put a status up saying everything's shit. Blah blah blah. I'll a couple of times I've dropped a message going, don't know what's up. If you need a chat, like just drop us a message. And sometimes they're like, yeah, cool, thanks for that. I never get a message. They don't know me. We're just friends on Facebook, because they either come to the pub or, we've got mutual friends or whatever. And then I remember one time I messaged somebody going, inbox is open if you want to have a chat. And she just lost her shit. She was like, oh, you're a fucking creep. I've got a boyfriend. And I'm like, cool. I've got a girlfriend. I'm not trying to hit on you. You put up a status basically saying that you needed help. I asked if you needed a chat. Or not even if you needed a chat, just if you do want to chat, drop us a message. And I thought it was like, being nice. And she just lost her shit. And I was like, okay, maybe I won't message if I see a status like that again. I might just, give it like a little love heart emoji or
This is exactly my point from earlier about how the wrong people, like people that want attention, because that's what that was. She wants attention and she wants attention from specific people. And you were
yeah,
not one of those people. And therefore, oh, you're a creep. Fuck you. Da, da, da. But the problem there is now you, who were trying to do something genuine and just help another human being, because you've been there, you get it, you care. You just want to help someone out.
yeah,
And now you feel like, oh, I guess I'm an asshole. Well, I won't do that then. Like
yeah,
I had this recently. There was a situation and same thing. I was just trying to help someone out. And then the next day I was told, oh, you know, seemed like you were flirty or something. And I was like,
See, people don't understand
I was
the
like, what? I was like, I remember it well, but this person was going through something and I was like, hey, what's up? And they yeah, I can see through people when they're saying like, "Oh, everything's great," when it's not, you know. And I was like,
yeah,
"What's wrong?" And they were like, "All right, I'll tell you, but can we do it in like in a note app on the
yeah,
phone?" And I
yeah,
was like, "All right, sure." So the whole night, everyone's there, and the phone's being passed back and forth, and we're just writing on this phone, right? And the chat like a little bit. continued on Instagram afterwards, and then just petered out, and then that was that. But I was told later on by a friend that apparently on that night I was flirty or too physical with people, and I was like, okay, you guys won't know this. So, Buddy Jackson's, you've got like the booths, right? So if you're all
And
sitting
many
in
a
the
night in that booth.
right, if you're sitting in the booth and there's like six of you, you're all packed in like sardines. You can't hear shit, so everything's like shouting if you're trying to talk to each other, but you're physically next to each other.
Yeah.
And plus, if there had have been an issue, if I had have been inappropriate with someone, just for argument's sake, people like Josh were there, so they would just be like, "Dude, what the
Exactly.
fuck?" You know what I mean? Like, and also more importantly, I'm not like that. I know I'm not like that, so I'm just like, "Huh, okay." And I just remember feeling like really sad afterwards because I was like, "You're trying to help someone." You can see that this person needs help. They're younger than you, and you see the issues, and you're like, hey, well, I've been around the block. I could help here. And then they turn it into something ugly and untruthful, and you're like, ah, okay, well, I'm just not good. And then I distance myself. Like I've seen that person since. I have no issue with them, but I got to say, seems like a lot of people have issues with them, and that's just the thing. I don't know. It's none of my business, but
That could have like developed into something quite serious as well, because you know how
exactly.
close the scene is, you know. Somebody could have came down to work the next day and they'd be like, "Oh, I should have seen Christian last night," you know, and then I'd be thinking, "No, I know the guy, he's not like that." But then somebody else overhears that, and then they tell somebody else. Next thing, you and your missus have a falling out because she hears this off somebody, and
Well,
you're trying to help somebody.
I remember telling her that night and everything, and she's just like, "What?
Yeah,
What the fuck?" Because I remember that particular night, someone said to me, "You have a girlfriend," and I was like, "Yes."
I
And
know that.
yeah. But I think they meant it like it's all water under the bridge with this person anyway. They're a sweetheart. But in this moment, first meeting me, they're like, don't you think you're a bit close with this person, kind of thing? And I'm like, well, I'm not flirting with them. I have zero interest in this person.
Yeah.
We're talking about them. I couldn't say it over the table, but we're talking about mental health. This person's like, I'm like, there's no flirting here. I'm talking about, I can't even remember what they were saying now.
Like
Just
even
something about
like
mental health anyway.
you know, if you're speaking to somebody who's dealing with mental health, you do slightly change how you speak to somebody normally, you know, so you are going to be that little bit nicer, you know, you're not
Well,
just going to like completely stand off and be like, "So this is what's wrong with you," you know.
yeah, I
You-
know what you're saying. Yeah, you're a bit more sensitive to it, and I
yeah,
think that the thing that irks me about it is, um, maybe this is something that's not always spoken about. If you're a man and you're talking to a woman, a lot of the time people are going to assume, oh, you're dating her, or oh, you're trying to flirt with her, or whatever. And we
yeah.
both have a lot of female friends, and we just don't do that. We're not like that as people. But
I
we're
think we're
also,
completely the opposite. I think we're quite defensive whenever it comes to like female friends,
yeah,
you
right.
know.
But also, we're very comfortable just talking and being, and we don't have any qualms about being emotional or sensitive. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show with you is to say like, hey, you can be a man and also be sensitive and emotional and talk about mental health, and there's no issue. You
Yeah,
know, that's if
100%
if,
right.
if there was ever a big message from this specific show, it's that, I think. But the other side of it is, yeah, people twist things, they turn things into something they're not. And I guess my point with this is it makes me not want to, like, now I don't do that now. Like I don't, if I see someone struggling, like a young woman for example, unless they ask me specifically, I won't say anything. I'll just stay quiet. I won't say anything. And it's
Right.
sad, but I'm like, well, I'm not about dealing with this bullshit, you know? Like, if you need help, reach out, talk to people. But if you're just looking for attention, if you're looking to cause problems, I don't know, then just go away, man. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. It's just a shame, I think.
Like that's one of the things I noticed with like, our saying that I've been hanging around the scene for like 8 years since I moved here and stuff. And it's it used to be really good, and then it got really toxic. And then, them people kind of got cut out or they moved away or they got whatever. And then it got really good again. And I was like a tiny portion, maybe 3% of the scene that if there isn't any drama, it's boring. So they want to cause that little bit of drama.
I know
But
exactly
then
what you mean.
then they'll pick someone's side and be like, "Oh, I can't believe that happened." That person, like, they're horrible, but they're the reason that it's happened. They've caused it.
No,
You
that's
know,
exactly what I've been driving at. Yeah, like I think what you said before is the most important thing. You know a person. When you know a person, you know that they're not like that.
yeah,
If there's like 50 stories about this person and they're all saying the same thing, then yeah, um, you start to sort of put the pieces together and then you see it, But it's it's worrying when people try to defame a person's character and tell stories where it's not true or they're lies. And it's interesting as well, like because I don't get involved in drama like yourself. I have zero interest. If people are doing that, I'm like whatever. I'm just here to have a good time. I'm not here to get involved in your bullshit. Sort it out, work it out. Like I'm very straightforward with things. I'm like, if you have an issue, let's talk about it. But I'm not gonna have drama with you because we're not fucking in high school. All right, grow up. Like,
yeah.
not to be harsh, but like, come on, you
Like
know.
I had a kind of toxic thing a couple of years ago. I'm not going to say any names because I'm not sure if it's still an illegal matter or anything.
Oh wow, okay.
But I was friends with these two people.
Yep.
Still friends with these two people. I was also friends with these other set of people. And things happened. The two groups, they fell out.
Mhm.
But because I was friends with all the people, they were like, "Oh, I can't believe you liked her status. What? Why are you liking her status?" And I'm like, "What? Am I 12 years old?"
Right. Yeah.
Uh, uh, One of the main people, literally in the pub, shouted across the pub, "What you doing liking that girl's post?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're nearly 50 years old.
What are you doing liking statuses, you prick?
Why are you stalking my Facebook page to see if I liked a specific post?" And then I explained it to a guy that I'm quite good friends with. He got out of the scene a little bit. And he was like, "The entire time all that happened, you didn't pick sides." And I was like, "Why would I pick sides? It's got fuck all to do with me. These group of people have always been sound to me. These group of people have always been sound. It has nothing to do with me at
Mm.
all." And then he was like, "Yeah, I get that now. At the beginning, I picked a side, but now I'm not on anyone's side because I don't see the point." And I was like, "It has nothing to do with me at all. If they wanted to talk about it, or the other person wanted to talk about it, I'd listen, but I wouldn't give an opinion because then they're going to be like, 'Oh, well, he said this.'"
I'm
So
I'm the same as you. Like, don't get me involved. I will avoid it at all costs. The only time I'll ever get involved, or not involved, but like I'll quote unquote pick a side, is if like something happened to my friend that's like, I don't know, unforgivable. Like
yeah,
someone or assaulted someone or something like that. You're
you
like,
know all
okay.
the facts. You know everything is what it is.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we hate this person then. But that's like extreme. Like a lot of the time it is just like you said, people being fucking childish. Are
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
kidding me? Facebook statuses?
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? So many people need to grow up. I'm sorry, but it's painful. I mean, mental health. we were talking earlier about how people will put Facebook statuses up and just, like, oh, everything's bad, everything's shit. Well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to change things? See, whenever, and again, I'm not trying to be like, oh, aren't I great? I do it the right way. But like, here's the deal with me. If you ever see me put a status up and I'm like, hey, I'm struggling, fuck, I need a miracle right now, it's because I've tried literally everything to fix
Yeah,
that situation and nothing's working. And I'm getting a bit desperate. And I'm like, a guy on a sinking ship, right? But it's not for want of trying. I'm not going to give up just because the ship's sinking. I'm like, hey, I'm just letting you know that my ship is sinking, so please fucking help. But I'm still trying to throw the water out of the sinking boat, you know?
yeah.
So, that was a good analogy there.
Should get matching tattoos with that.
I just, with certain people, like you see it like the same shit every single time. And like, I'm not a therapist, but like I know when someone's got like a problem. Um, oh, should I tell this story? Might be fun to tell it. So there was this guy that worked at my workplace. If anyone that I work with, it's just this. Look it up. Um, right. He's the worst, most useless person I've ever met in my entire life, and that's saying a lot. Um, the reason I bring this up, to be clear, in the context of this conversation, is I think this is a cry for help disguised as bullshit. So basically, this guy was a compulsive liar. He lied about his entire life. He was always making up things. And when I go through some of these stories, you'll start to see what I mean about the cry for help. Because really, the cry for help is he wanted to be liked, he wanted to be accepted, and he just completely went the wrong way about it. And I don't understand why. And I think some of it comes from attention seeking, some of it comes from maybe poor upbringing. I don't know. As in, like, not being, because that's the thing as well. Like, I think when you're growing up, you need to have a clear set of principles and, like, okay, we don't treat people like this, we're honest, we have courage, etc. Right? So this guy starts, and I think he's like 19 because he looks quite young. He seems quite deer in the headlights kind of thing, and I want to help him. Like, I'd see someone like that, I'm like, hey, well, hey, here's what we do. Take the person under your wing, kind of thing. Turns out he's like 23, 24. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, there's people that work here that are younger than him, and they get the job in like 2 days.
Yeah.
This guy, it's been a month now. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, Breath. It's not looking good. So basically, what happens is, I remember the very first day he worked, I was with him. It was crazy. It was like trial by fire shift. I felt bad for him. It was awful. And the nature of our job is you kind of have to work it for like a few weeks just so you know like where everything is and what everything is. But you don't need like that many shifts to get it. Like, if you, and this guy was full time. So if it's like a week or two, you should have it down by now, right? So after like the first couple of weeks, he's been trusted to work with us on certain things, and you go to him, hey, can you get me this, please? And he's like, oh, where do I go to get that? And you'd be like, well, it's in the kitchen, man, where it always is.
Yeah.
Oh, where's that? You're fucking with me, right? You're kidding me. And so you'd explain it, and he'd be like, oh, okay. And he'd go and either not get you what you asked for or just get lost. And I'm like, you've been in like a month. What the fuck? A good example, this wasn't me, but it was a manager. She asked him to get like a series of different tables, and they all have like names. So like you got slims, 5 foot fats, rounds. They all serve different purposes, different functions. So he was asked to get like, I don't know, three or four different types of tables or three types of tables, right? And then a certain amount. So five of these, two of these, three of these. He comes back with the wrong tables, but he also came back with like a table that like we never use. Like it's this one that's got like a power pack thing in it, and this manager who has been unbelievably like patient with this guy is just like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? And he tried to argue it. He'd be like, oh no, it's right, it's the right one. It's like, it's not the right one. What do you mean? How do you not know? How do you not know? Oh, but it is the right one. No, it's not. Now, before I continue, I think one or two things is the case here. Either this guy is insane or he's an idiot. And I'm being deadly serious here. I'm not trying to take the piss. Because I tried to figure it out. We all tried to help this guy. I remember there was one day where we were sitting in the canteen and everyone's bitching about him and how useless he is. And it's like a month in, and I'm like, oh, well, I believe in second chances, and you know, I think we could help him. And I remember there's another manager who agreed with me, and we're like, yeah, we could do something with this guy. Famous last words. It just got worse and worse. I remember one time we were doing an event, and he just kind of got in the way. To be honest, he'd slow
Yeah, I've
things.
had people like that in the past
You know
where
what I
they're making
mean?
my job hard.
Well, it's like they slow things down, and you're like, it's actually easier for me to just not have you here. That would
Yes.
actually be more advantageous to me. And I'd always try and get him to do something simple, like just clear plates or something he can't fuck up. But even then, sometimes, you know, like he used to smash a lot of things, like, and like
Doesn't mind.
you're gonna smash a few things here and there, but when you smash like a whole tray of glasses, it's like, bro, like
Yeah.
they're not they're not cheap. Like, what are you doing?
The way I deal with that is if I'm always on the fence. Are people pretending to be like that to make their shift easier or to, you know, not have to do as much work because they think I'm stupid. So if I keep acting stupid, I'm not going to be asked to do much stuff. So I always find like a really stupid job. Like years ago, whenever I was living in Ireland, but I used to manage the cozy, this girl, she came in for a trial shift. She was okay. You know, I never really judged too much off a trial shift. I judge more you as a person on a trial shift because I can train people. So after like 5 or 6 shifts, I knew she wasn't going to get it. Like, you know, but I was like, I'll keep her around for a bit. So one day I got her to change a keg and I had to go to the shop, which is like 30 seconds away. So I was like, right, I'll be back in it, you know, 2 minutes. I think I was going to like get like, I don't know, milk or something like that. I don't know what I was getting. So as I walk out the door where she could still see me, she rings me going, oh, the keg's just ran out. And I was like, remember what I taught you like 5 minutes ago? Just go up and change the keg, come back down, you know, nice and easy. So she comes back down, rings me like 10 seconds later, crying, going, it's not working, it's not working. I'm like, okay, I'm literally at the shop now. I think it was a Heineken keg. I was like, whoever wants to pound a Heineken, give them a bottle of Heineken free. Whenever I come back, I'll change the keg, you know, just to make it easy. It's a quite a local bar, so, you know, they would have been understanding. I come back, there's a bar and then there's a lounge, but whenever you're behind the bar, it's the walkway is connected, so you can walk up and down, you know, without having to leave the actual bar area. So she's down in the very bottom bar where there's nobody, like just sat on the chair, just like hysterically crying. And I was like, all right, come on, let's go up and look at this keg. And then I go up. She just hadn't pushed it down, you know. So easy mistake. She just panicked. So I was like, right, I've got a really big job for you. You know, this job's really, really important. We need to get this job today. Tomorrow is keg collection day. I need you to wash all the kegs so they're nice and shiny whenever they get picked up.
Nah, you're taking a
No,
piss, mate.
no, I got her to do this.
Why?
Because
Is it a test? Just to...
this is to see if she'd actually do it. So she washes all the kegs. She comes back down. She dries them off and everything, like. And she's like, all the kegs are really clean. I'm just wondering why you got me to wash them because nothing touches the outside of the kegs. And I was like, exactly.
Oh no.
So she turned around and was like, I don't think Bar works for me. And I was like, I know, I didn't want to be a dick and just fire you because of a few mistakes. I wanted you to realize that yourself.
So okay. So in this instance, this was a girl that, maybe she just wasn't all that bright.
I went to school with her, so we were already friends at this point as
Okay.
well. So I'd known her for like, you know,
See,
20 years or something.
see, your person, like, she was just maybe a girl who's not very bright, and it's forgivable. It's like, okay, it is what it is.
Yes.
That's you feel bad, but you gave him a chance, etc. My guy, well, he's not my guy, the guy, the bad guy. Um, I don't, I no, I don't agree that it's just you can't be this stupid. I mean, I say that there's so many people that are. I mean, that story right there proves it. But you're just kind of like, how is this possible? I'll give you another example. It's an event, obviously. So it's early in to him working there, maybe 2 weeks in, and there's a female organizer, um, and that'll become relevant in a second. So the first issue is that he used to like be really inappropriate and just like flirt and with clients and stuff, which is very inappropriate. And
Yeah.
he'd be constantly be like, "Oh, she's well fit," but he'd say it like in front of them so they could hear it. And it was
Mm.
like, "Stop! What are you doing? You just looks bad on the hotel. It looks bad on us. Looks bad on you. Like, what are you fucking shut up?" Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, are we in high school? What? Yeah, what are you doing?" I remember one time he came in. We were like clearing trays or whatever, and we brought it to the back, and he just laughed and went like, "Oh, I've got cum all over me," and it was like yogurt on his trouser leg or something. And
Oh,
I'm like,
Jesus.
and I remember just standing and looking at him, and just I was like, "Is that supposed to be funny? Like what?"
Yeah.
And he was just laughing it off, and I'm like, "Bro, we're adults. We're not. That was funny when we were 14."
Yeah.
I, whatever. I'm not trying to be a party pooper, but it just wasn't. Yeah. Anyway, this organizer asks him to stand. So, like, imagine that you're coming out of the elevators. You can either turn left or right. Right would be towards rooms. Left is towards the meeting rooms, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to then, as you come out of them, if you were to turn left, you could still go left or right. So she'd put up a sign there that says "Go left." So it's very clear. But she said to this guy, she was like, "Hey, could you stand sort of outside the elevators or near them and just kind of guide people in, let them know where to go?"
As we know in hospitality, people don't read.
Right, and it's just useful, yeah. Like, look, your first time coming into a place, not everyone is like, I know where to go, I know what to do. Some people need to know where to go. Some people need that extra help, and that's what you're there to do.
Yeah.
And it's fine, right? But this guy was like arguing about it, like, "Oh, I don't think I actually need to be there because there's already a sign." And it's like, and I pulled him aside and I was like, "Listen, if the client tells you to do something, just do it. What's the problem?"
Easy job too.
Yeah, and then he was like overthinking it. He was like, "Oh, but I don't know, like, because I don't fully understand this event. Like, I don't know what to fully tell them. What is it? Conference, this, that." I'm like, just tell them that. "Oh, is that what you're here for? Okay, yeah, there."
Yeah.
Well, they'll ask you. They'll be like, "Oh, is this where the da 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 is?" And you go, "Yes."
Just point.
Yes. This is not rocket science. But this guy constantly, I always tear my fucking hair out. I remember one time he got annoyed at me because he was slowing us down. It was a really busy day, and I was in the middle of like, we have these things called chafing dishes. So you got like, you know what it is. But for anyone who
Yeah.
doesn't know, a chafing dish, you've probably seen it at a breakfast buffet somewhere. You put like a burner underneath it or blue gel underneath it, and you light it up, and then you put some water in the dish, and then you put food on it, right? But you got to prep that first before you put the food on there. So I'm trying to do that, running around. I've got this agency dude with me who's also doing stuff. So I'm kind of moving this operation around, trying to just quickly get this stuff done. This guy's in the way, and he always used to come up and be like, is there anything I can do? Like, can I do something? And that job, to be honest, especially when you've been there that long, you kind of should know the order of priorities. Like, really, the managers shouldn't have to say much. You know, sometimes, I mean, it's useful. Like, you know, oh, can you do this, please? But they don't need to say much because they know you know what to do, and you just get on with it. You know what I mean? In this instance, I'm like supervising it, I guess, and he comes over and asks that question, and I just said no. I did actually need help, but I was like, no.
Yeah, you're just gonna get in the way. Like,
Why? I didn't say that. I just left it like, no, I'm all right. And he was like, oh, for fuck's sake, and he walks off. And I turned to the agency dude. I'm like, hey Barry, come here for a sec. I was like, oh hey, could you do this for me? Yeah, cheers, thank you. Because I knew if I asked that guy, he'd get it done.
yeah,
And even those agency guys, they'd see this guy doing stuff, and they're like one of them actually just said to his face, he was like, "How did you fuck that up? Like the manager was really clear about that. How did you not know? How can you not understand?" And he was just like, "Oh, what do you mean?" He always used to say that. "Oh, what do you mean?" And this is what makes me think that like it was a character he was playing. He was really misogynistic, right? Like very homophobic. He famously got there's this guy that we work with who's like an utter sweetheart. Like if he doesn't like you, then you're the problem.
yeah.
Like as simple as that. He managed to fuck everyone off on the team very quickly. But he pissed this guy off so much and kept calling him gay. And this is like a married man, a proud man. You know, I think any man would be a bit annoyed if you keep doing that. It's just poking the bear at that point.
Yeah.
It's just rude and obnoxious. And he does this, and this guy straight up, and this is again, I'm going to paint a picture: peaceful guy, nice guy, friendly guy, quiet guy. He pushed him for the last time, and he just turned around to him and he was like, "I will punch you in the fucking face. Like, I will hit you. What is your fucking problem?" And bizarrely, I still to this day, is anyone from work is watching, how was he not fired for that? How? He was on probation. I would have been like, see ya,
Yeah.
bye. We kept him on. I don't know why we kept him on. I think it's because we believe in second chances, and we gave the guy like about 100.
Some people is just no teaching. Like they've got it set in their mind. They're probably enjoying annoying people.
Let me tell you a little bit more, and then you be the judge. All right, we'll make it like a final judgment of, is this person a desperate cry for help, and you know this is them trying to do that, or are they just full of shit, and or are they just stupid? Which is it? So misogynistic, homophobic, all of these things, right? He eventually he just he does, there's like story after story after story after story, and then he's sick. He's no one's seen or heard from him. It's quite clear he's going to get the sack or be let go, whatever. But his out of work life is arguably the more fascinating, more interesting detail, because when he came into work, like his demeanor was that of a guy who really was ambitious, wanted to be, work hard, progress. He tried. He made the effort. He just was bad at the job and didn't listen. And I always used to say to the managers, like, if you ever need a perfect example of why active listening is such an important life skill, especially in the workplace, it's that. Do you know what I mean? Do what you're told.
Yeah.
Listen. Like, for example, he would never write shit down. Like, we often get asked to do like several different things at once, or gather a bunch of things. And if it's more than like three things, I'm like, hold on. I grab my phone. I start writing on my phone. And
Yeah.
managers don't bat an eyelid because they kind of expect that.
Yeah, you're making your job easier.
Right, but this guy would never do that, and he would just forget shit, and it was like, why don't you help yourself? Like, you got to use your intuition. You've got to look at these things and go, all right, how can I make this work? That's what your job is, right? But it's straightforward shit. that you should just know. And it's impossible to not grow and progress. Like, I don't get that. And then fast forward to like, they see him on nights out in like Gay Village and stuff. And apparently, he told us that he was living he told me that he was living at home with his parents and that he did that by choice because I think saving money, something like that. He lived on his own for a while and he was just doing that. And I was like, well, yeah, cool. That's very normal. Lots of people do that these days. Save money, get a house. Yeah, it's normal. So he's saying that. And then it transpires that actually that's all bullshit. He lives with a 60-year-old man, a gay man, apparently. And he's like a sugar baby. I think that's what they call it. And it was described that he was hanging off this guy's nipples in Gay Village. I mean, I've seen some crazy shit in Gay Village, but yeah.
That's an image.
Well, the thing is, as well, it's like two different images because you've got this guy that you know at work who has presented himself in such a way, and then you see this other person that is the opposite of that. And like, I don't care if someone's gay, bisexual, whatever. Who cares, right? Like, it's good for you. Yeah, like it would, whatever, right? Like to me, it's like the way the wind blows. It just is, you know.
Yeah.
But it did irk me to find this out and be like, so why were you mocking people at work being gay? Like, and this is why I wanted to get to the crux, the point of all of this. I think this was attention seeking. I think it was. I mean, I suppose that is a scenario where it is possible that he was both stupid and trying to be somewhat manipulative and manipulate the narrative. Although I do find that quite puzzling because you need a certain degree of intelligence to be manipulative. Although, can you be manipulative and stupid? I suppose you can on some level.
Yeah, I don't think he'd
Maybe.
be very good at it, but I think
Right.
you could attempt it. Yeah.
Actually, maybe that's the point. Yeah, he wasn't that good at it because it was quickly exposed. But impulsive, maybe is the right word. And to bring this back to mental health because it's been a long sidetrack. That to me is a cry for help. That to me is like attention seeking, but also it's better to just be yourself.
I think it might be quite a lot deeper than what, if you see that guy at work, you think, okay, this guy is just a fucking idiot.
Yep.
And that's it. That's all you think about.
Yep.
But just by listening to the stories, and if I wanted to think about it quite deep, the first things that come to my mind is, what was his upbringing like? Has something happened when he was a kid? Has his parents, have they both been like at work all the time, not really around to kind of guide him and stuff like that? As he's growing up, has he started to kind of figure out that he's like a little bit different than his friends? Is he actually gay? And he thinks it's wrong, so he doesn't know how to come out and say it. Has something like that happened?
I get that. I think I can't speak to his upbringing or anything like that. That is a question mark. And I think that's a very astute point. Like, that is a big factor. And arguably one of the most, if not the most important factor is your upbringing and what you're exposed to. It shapes you. As I get older, I see that more and more. So absolutely.
Yeah, like, my dad was always at work, but my granny and granddad, like I lived with my dad, my granny and granddad back home. So, my dad would be at work during the day. And then whenever like I was at home or whatever, I'd come home from school. Like, it felt like you were walking into a caring house. You'd walk in, how's your day been? What have you got for homework? What'd you learn in school today? Blah, blah, blah. You'd have your dinner, you'd watch some TV. Then it's like, okay, it's time to go do your homework now. It's always like, please and thank you. Like, don't shoot your mouth open. Like little things like that you get taught. And then as you get older, you keep the little things and then you learn more and more. So, if you don't have like parental figures because, they're not there or they're not working, you don't get the basic like start.
So Here's the thing with that though. You remember how I said that like this guy couldn't listen?
Yeah,
If you'd never had people like that around, or people didn't invest in you or something like that when you were growing up, I understand. But then you'd be clamoring for it, wouldn't you? You'd want to be guided. And
yeah,
when people make it like really plain and simple for you, like, hey, you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. Do you understand? And you say yes. And then you immediately go and fuck it up. I don't know what to say to you in that moment.
yeah.
I like it, honestly. I spoke to a friend of mine at work about this the other day, and we were sort of reminiscing and having a laugh about it. The first day, he was like, "Oh, what do you think of this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's getting a bad rap. I think he'd be alright. We'll see, we'll see." I actually like him. He was good today because he like just spent the day clearing plates. He was good at that.
Yeah.
It was like one thing he could do. And then the next day, I see this my friend, and he's just like, "So how was it?" And I was like, "Oh, fucking awful. I don't want to work with this guy anymore."
Yeah.
Like, what a difference a day makes, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I
It's a
think you're
hard
spot
one
on.
because, like, I think I'm like a strong judge of character. Like, my entire life, if somebody comes up and they're like, "Oh, this is so and so," and then like 5 seconds later, they're like, "That guy's an asshole," I'm gonna be like, "Well, they haven't done anything yet, so I don't know." Let me be the judge. You might not just get on with them, but so like obviously I get what you're saying about this guy just being like shit at his job. But then he's seeing the reactions he's getting off people, and he's like,
Interesting.
"This is fun. I'm winding people up. I'm getting
Hmm.
something out of this. Like, they're getting me to do easy jobs because I'm pissing them off."
Do you
It
really think it was
was the
simple as
acting of
that?
it.
He was just a wind-up merchant trying to make
Yeah.
his. Hmm.
Because I used to work with this guy. This guy, he was shit hot at his job, but he always put on this act that he was not stupid, but he was a little bit slow. But after about a month of working with him, I'd listen to how he was speaking, and he'd be saying things that were really witty, and I'm like, this guy's not dumb. This guy's acting like he's dumb, but he's shit hot at his job, and he's really, really witty. He's quite funny. He's a lot smarter than what he's acting like he is. Like he was just putting on an act, but when it came to it, he was shit hot.
So it comes from a place of loneliness. Oh, so not loneliness, laziness, maybe.
Possibly, yeah. If it's quiet and there wasn't anything to do, he'd kind of just be tipping about. Then you hit Friday night and it's time to go. He's just on it straight away.
I mean, that sounds like me. I'm lazy as fuck when there's not much to do, and if
Yeah.
it's time to go, I'm like, let's fucking go.
But then is that like, have you got some sort of like, are you slightly on the spectrum in some case where you've got no attention span until something happens, and then it's like, okay, this needs to be done. So then
Hmm.
that's when you react. But with this guy, it doesn't sound like that. It just sounds like he was putting on an act.
It's just weird. It's puzzling.
Yeah.
Reminds me of another thing. I saw a guy get fired once from a workplace, and he was a bartender. I think I told this story before on the show. It's a while ago now. Um, Another compulsive liar, but in a very different way. He would make up all these different stories, like, "Oh, I have a Porsche. Oh, I have this car, that car. I own all these businesses, bars, etc. I worked for this company as their lead head of bartending or whatever the fuck." And we used to we clocked on pretty quickly that this guy was bullshitting, and we would trade stories, be like, "Oh, what did he tell you? Oh, he told me this."
Yeah.
It was funny. It was like we knew he was full of shit, but he was nice, so it was like, "Fuck it, doesn't matter." But the issue started where I can't remember if it was there was accusations made against like him maybe pilfering or doing something like that. I can't remember how it started exactly, but I can tell you what happened when he got fired. So um here's what happened. he was stealing drinks. He was at the other bar and he was making himself cocktails. This sounds so weird to say this, like, because we're both bartenders, and
Yeah.
it's like, imagine that, just fucking making yourself drinks, and
Does he not
then,
know what stock take involves? Like,
wow, okay, so like, this is crazy, right? So he would like either make the drink or half make it with a cocktail shaker and put it to a side, right? Where he was, there was a camera, but there was blind spots, obviously. So I think he took advantage of that, and the guy who was supervising, working with me, we would like sort of, we were gonna get this fucker right, but we were like, where's he kept his drinks? Because one of the um, the servers came up to us and she was like, oh yeah, he's like making drinks for himself, and I was like, is he now? I was like, she's like, yeah. I was like, are the drinks at the bar? And he's like, no, I don't know where they are. And I was like, all right, well, let me know next time he makes another one. She was like, okay. She was like, oh, yeah, he made another drink, but he took it somewhere. And I was like, where? And he's like, oh, think downstairs. And I was like, thinking to myself, which rooms don't have any cameras? Ah, yeah. So go downstairs. I'd say hi to him as I'm walking by. I'm like, oh, you're right. I walk downstairs to the cellar and I go into this room. It's like a food prep storage room with like a
yeah,
sink that we would wash shit in as well. And basically, like, there's no cameras in there, and behind the corner, there's like three drinks there, three cocktails. I think it would have cost like, I don't know, 30 quid in total. It's not. It's a lot of money.
yeah.
Um, so he'd stolen them. I sent photos to my friend. I'm like, right, we'll get this fucker, we'll get him fired.
What I would have done in that scenario, I would have fucked with his drinks a little bit. I would have put some salt in it or something just to scare him enough that he knows someone knows and see if he does it again.
I think they were just looking for an excuse to fire this guy, though. Like, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. That would have been fun, but it was also like we were all kind of getting a bit sick of this guy. Because here's the other shit he was doing. He he was taking tip money from the servers. So like he'd tell them to put it in this like jar, like, oh, I'll collect all of this, and then he just took it.
Right,
That,
okay.
that
Yeah.
was their money, you know.
Yeah.
It's really shitty behavior. So he was doing that, and arguably the worst thing that he was doing, which is, I'm sure it's just straight up theft. Um, so we were told explicitly that when we charged cocktails through, we had to do it by what was on the tab. So like this cocktail, this cocktail, this cocktail. If you were to, he would put things through the till individually, which ended up being more expensive. But he'd mark it down as having been that drink, something like that.
Yeah.
So by doing that, he would then pocket the difference.
Right, okay, yeah.
So yeah, if the drink's like supposed to be £15 and he's charging it £20, but then taking the fiver, because we used to do that for like tips. Like if someone would pay, I don't know, let's say they buy a beer and it's a fiver, and they're like, "Oh, can I buy you a beer?" And you're like, "Well, I can't drink on shift, but I can take the money." And they're like, "Great." So you charge them a tenner, take the cash from the till,
Yeah.
and it balances out. That's pretty
I
standard.
know a lot of businesses that do that and stuff like that. You know, it's quite normal
That's what he was doing basically, but like,
without asking.
yeah, well, yeah. So he's
Yeah.
overcharging customers and giving himself tips.
So again, that's
Wow,
against the duty of care because you're ripping people off. They're not knowing that they're being ripped off.
fucking
And
wild, man.
yeah, that's one of your four licensing objectives that you're not doing properly.
Plus, when he got called the next day to get fired, it was quite funny actually. The manager was over the phone. They called him a thieving. See you next Tuesday. And apparently his response was he said like, "Oh, you've got no evidence," and then they were like, "We've got you on camera and we've got all this photographic evidence." And he apparently audibly off phone, he was like, "Fuck."
My guy.
They just disappeared. It's just like people like that, like compulsive liars. Like you're gonna get caught out. You're gonna get caught out. Why do that? Why be like that? I don't
Like,
get it.
I always tell people at work, there's two different scenarios. Never lie about work, never
Yep.
lie about stuff like that. But there is little white lies that you can tell, as in you can make up a story. Like I've got this story that I tell to people. Like we sell Old Peculiar. We're one of the only bars in Manchester that sell it. You know, it's quite a famous beer. So whenever people come in, they're like, "Oh, you've got Old Peculiar on. Oh, great. You know, it's such a nice beer. It's quite strong, though." I'd be like, "Oh, wait till I tell you this story." Jesus. You know, I was working a couple of weeks ago, and do you know the booth that's beside the front door as you walk in, just on your right hand side, the rectangle table?
Yeah.
I always use that table as for the story because you know it's got like the back seat, so you know you can get quite comfy there. So my story is that you know there was this guy in like 3 weeks ago. He had about 4 or 5 pints full of peculiar. Gets to closing time. I'm like, right, dude, come on, you know, it's closing time. I need to lock up. It's just you left. And he's like, oh shit, yeah, I've been trying to leave for the last hour and a half. You know, my brain's working fine. Legs don't fucking work anymore though. So then I'm like, yeah, come on, give me your hand, I'll get you up. And obviously it's never happened. It is a lie. But it's a way to increase the legend of Old Peculiar of how strong it actually can be to warn people to go easy on it, which they never fucking do. But you know, in a scenario like that, I can tell the staff you can make up a little lie like that just to have something, have a story to tell the customer. You're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
That guy who had the 5 Old Peculiar, he doesn't exist. You know, he was never there. But it creates the illusion of something that's happened and you know how you've dealt with them, thinking about it a little bit deeper, how you've dealt with them in a drunken situation and how you've made sure they were okay. But again, it's not real, it's just a joke, you know.
Shit, man. Let's steer it back towards mental health. Does dealing with illness, mental health, ever get any easier, in your opinion?
No, um straight up no. You do have good days. Obviously you're not going to feel absolutely horrible every single day, you know. um there's something that I do daily. This is just me personally, I'm not saying for everybody to try do this, but I think it helps me quite a bit. So I'll set myself a target of I need to do a minimum of 10,000 steps a day. When I'm at work, I do 20, 30,000 steps. Easy. On my days off, that just means I need to get up and do something. Like I play Pokemon Go. If anyone who plays Pokemon Go, um, you can you can put an egg in an incubator and you have to walk so many steps before this egg hatches. Last week, one time, I had an egg that I had to walk 10 kilometers to hatch. I'm not going to walk 10 kilometers in a day, but uh, I remember I left my house. I was going up to Aldi to go shopping. And I was walking past the old monkey, my friend, he's the landlord there. So as I'm walking past, he's like, oh, you coming in for a beer? This is like a Tuesday morning at like 11:30 or something like that, 12 o'clock maybe. I was like, no, I'm not going in for a beer. I need to hatch my egg. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, I'm playing Pokemon Go. Like, you know, I need to go hatch my egg. I need to do a minimum of 10,000 steps a day. That's my goal every day, is to just walk 10,000 steps. And he starts laughing at me and he's like, dude, you're fucking mental. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, I'll tell you the real reason. Me having to do 10,000 steps means I either go for a little shop or a little walk to Spar to go to shop, and then I come back. But I haven't done 10,000 steps yet. So later on, I need to go out for a little bit longer, go for a walkabout. And, you know, you're getting fresh air, as fresh as the air in Manchester can be. But it still means you still need to get up and do it. And that's just my way of getting up and getting out of bed and just doing stuff. And then you see people and you have a chat with them. And, you know, you might go for a walk around the park and say something that's cool. Or, you know, you might go take some pictures somewhere. And it's just a way of getting out of the house.
I'm learning more and more about you by the day, man. That's awesome.
It sounds not everyone's gonna, it's not gonna work for everybody.
No,
But
that's good.
that's my thing. You know, people could be, you have to cook yourself at least one meal a day. Just something healthy, something nice, something that you enjoy. It means you have to get up, you have to either get the stuff in that you want, you have to actually cook it, and you know, you clean your plates. and you've had a meal that you like. You know, it could be something like that. It could be, you know, you might like going to the museum. You go to the museum once a week. Go see something. Just if you set yourself a little target every day or every week, that's and then whenever you finish it, you're like, okay, I've done that for today. I've done that for this week. You know, I can reward myself. I can go get a takeaway. I can go have a beer. I can go watch the football. I can go cinema. You know, it's especially on days that you're not working. It's hard to like motivate yourself to reward yourself for that day if you haven't done anything. You know, but
So
again, it doesn't work for everybody. But
no, I think it's important. I mean, it's they call it wellness, and
if you're looking for something to like fill a void, try set yourself a goal.
it's self care, isn't it?
Yeah,
But it's like important, obviously, to be in nature and to see these things, to get healthy, walk around, etc. You know, absolutely.
yeah. I think I seen you like maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I think you were walking to work, and I was
Mm.
just walking past the bar, and I think you were running late, but it was just like, oh, how's it going? You all right? See you
Yeah,
later.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
That
was
was
just a quick hug
nice.
and yeah, in a bit. And that's what I was doing. I was out hatching some eggs at that point.
It's a good way of doing it as well. Like it's gamification. It's kind of fun because you'll get a reward at the end.
Yeah,
It's kind of like conditioning yourself, but it's good. You know,
yeah. Sometimes just throwing in your headphones and just listening to a podcast or listening to like your favorite band or trying to find some new music that's the same kind of genre that you like.
is an interesting one. How can I support a friend who's struggling without overstepping boundaries?
That is a tough one. Um, Again, like you said earlier, I'm not a therapist. I
Mm.
can only go on my own personal experiences. So, me personally, what I do is I'd make them aware that I'm there. You know, like in the past with some of my friends, like I've noticed that they're not okay. I'll I'll be very careful about what words I use when I'm speaking to them. I'll kind of make them know that I'm there, but they don't necessarily have to speak about anything. Sometimes just being in the same room as somebody can help. You know, say for instance you're like I'm doing a bit shit, but I don't really know what's up. I'm like, cool, do you want to go for a coffee? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to just so you know that I'm there, but I'm not necessarily poking to try and get you to talk to me. Because eventually, when you want to talk, you know that you're comfortable enough with me that you will talk to me then, because I've been there. Just don't over pressurize them to try and talk. Just make, you know, maybe if they're not like a big texter or anything like that, maybe just drop in once a day and be, maybe not even ask them how they're doing. Tell them like a little funny story that's happened to you, and then they know that you're subconsciously they're going to know you're checking in, but you're not kind of pushing them to talk.
I think yeah, that helps. Being present, just checking in, like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Yeah,
And if they just don't say much, like, cool. But
yeah,
then do it again the next day and the
yeah.
next day, and then because eventually the person is going to be like, yeah, actually something is up, and you're like, oh, all right, and you're just like really blasé about it, like because you fucking know that there's an issue, but you're like, oh, okay, what's up?
The thing to be really careful about is though, whenever you're like checking in and you're not necessarily asking them how they are, you can slightly touch on how you're feeling, but don't make it about you.
Hmm.
You know, don't be like, oh, I've had such a shit day, because then automatically they're gonna get into their mindset that they have to check on you, and then
Right.
they won't think about themselves. But you know, you could be like, oh, work was really busy. You know, it was sound, but it was just really busy. You know, a bit tired. How's your day been? And then they're like, oh, it's fine. It's like, oh, okay, look, did you watch football last night? Did you see that gig's happening next week? You know, and then just kind of try to keep conversation going like flowing, even if it's just minimal, always end your message or your conversation with a question. So you've got something to reply back to.
Solid advice. Thank you for that. How can I
Yeah, that's
find?
just me personally, you know.
Yeah, well, hey, it's useful, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's personal experience, but it's valuable, and it comes from experience. Comes from getting it wrong, getting it right, and then figuring out what's best.
Yeah.
How can I find the strength to deal with this illness for my entire life? So, if someone has like a mental health illness, do you have any
Um,
advice for them as far as like coping, maybe living with it? I know that's. I'll just add some context here. I think that if you've been diagnosed with something, obviously that's going to change your entire life. Some are less, let's say, problematic than others, like more, let's say, more manageable, maybe might be a better word. But others are devastating, and it completely changes everything you understand about life and yourself. So, with that added context, like, how can one learn to live with that? Do you think?
I think I think learning to live with something so serious and so something that's not as straightforward and simple it's going to be quite hard, but you're going to realize how strong a human mind actually is. It's not like you're dependent on your body. If you're ill and your body starts shutting down, you can't fix that. That's just how your body works. With your mind, it's probably the only thing in your body that can be fixed, or not necessarily fixed, but can recover. So like you could have like 6 days absolutely fine, enjoying your life. The smallest thing could happen, and it could like your mental health, like being good and being bad, is probably as thin as a piece of hair. Once that snaps, you know, you end up like getting into like a bad rut and stuff. And I think I used this in the last time we talked. When that one piece of hair breaks, I think it's like 4 or 5 new pieces of hair grow back in that spot. It takes time. Everybody's different. You've got long hair, I've got long hair. Your hair grows at a different rate than my hair grows, but it does grow back. So then you've got, them 5 strands of hair that's grown back that's going to make you stronger. They're going to break again. It's always going to happen. You just need to, you as a person needs to figure out what is your way of dealing with it, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's, you might need one day a week just alone, listening to music, playing games, watching TV. Just, your social barrier might just be completely shattered. You might just need that one day just to, recover everything. But it's not always going to be bad. As whenever it is bad, it feels like it's never going to get better. But like just using the hair as like an example, whenever you do get better, you realize that you've got more support until it does go bad again. So it always will get better.
Beautiful message there. Thank you for sharing, man. You're a wise man. Well, thank you.
I don't know about wise, but I could talk about hair.
What has mental health taught you about life?
It's interesting. It's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
I think growing up as a kid, obviously, like I grew up, with my granny, my granddad, and my dad. I think I was quite sheltered as a kid that there's no such thing as bad things in the world. Everything's fucking nice and happy and good. And then the older you get, you see bad things in life. You see that, okay, I'm going home to like a cooked meal after school and stuff, but, Jimmy down the road, he doesn't have that. You know, it's like you have to take like the good things in life with the bad things. It's never always going to be good. It's if it was always good, as weird as it sounds, it'd be really, really boring, you know. And like I don't, people can believe in God. I'm not against that. Me personally, I don't believe in God. This is what we have to live with. You know, we're all here for a short time. You might not like the people that you're with, but you're fucking stuck with them. So you need to make the best of what you can with it, because you know, next thing you blink and you're 67 years old. So if there's something that you want to do right now, go and do it. Don't live with a regret whenever you're old and be like, why didn't I do that? You know, like, I fancy this girl. Should I ask her on a date? What's the worst that can happen? She'll say no. She might say, yeah. You know, you want to go and like play music. You know, you might not be to somebody's taste, but somebody out there is going to like you. Music is it's a universal thing. It's, you know, everybody can sing, but not everybody can sing the way that singing is meant to be. But they can still make noise.
I
So, you know,
completely agree with this.
if
Yeah,
it's making you happy, just fucking do it.
absolutely. Couple of final quick fire questions for you, completely unrelated. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, it's a tough one, that. Um, Probably, I don't really know how it was phrased, but it's kind of, if you can do you every single day to the extent where it doesn't actually hurt anybody, then do what you want to do. Don't worry about what people think about you. It's easier said than done, but the older I've got, the more, you know, if I walk into a room and there's somebody there that I know purposely hates me, I'll probably become a little bit louder just to annoy them. Not where I'd say anything nasty or anything. I just, you know, say if I walked into the pub and I see you there and I see someone in the corner that I know purposely hates me, like, I'll be like, Christian, what's the crack, man? And then they're like, oh shit, he's here. They're either gonna ignore me and just enjoy themselves, or they're gonna leave.
Yeah,
And you don't need that negativity around you.
that's true. I think in situations like that as well, it's always a shame because it's something that can be easily solved, and they just, for whatever reason, don't want to do that. And you're like, well, fuck you. We're in the same space. You know, I'm willing to solve it. If you're not willing to, that's you.
Yeah, it's your loss at the end of the day. We don't have to be friends, but you know, you sit on one side, I'll sit on the other side, and it's simple.
What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
This one's a little bit scientifical.
Ooh, scientifical.
I don't even know. Is that a real word?
It is now. I like
I'm
it.
going to create my own dictionary.
Scientifical.
um, so I was reading something a couple of years ago, and basically, what happens whenever you die is your brain is the last thing that stops working, as long as, like, you know, you, your brain doesn't die first. But if you're dying from like something normal, so basically everything that has happened in your life will be replayed. I think it takes something like 2 minutes or something like that. But as it's being replayed in your brain, it's played in real time. So
Oh, I've never heard this
everything
theory.
everything slows down. So technically, at the minute, one of us could be dead and be replaying our lives and just
That's
rewatching it as it's
crazy.
happening. So I've got a tattoo. It's one day your life will flash before your eyes. It's up to you to make it worth watching. The last thing you're going to see is the movie that you've made yourself. So anything that you want to go and do, just go and do it, because that's going to be the last thing that you're ever going to see.
Fucking mind blown, man.
I remember
I'd
telling
ha-
that to somebody who was stoned one night, and I just blew their mind with that. And they were like, "No, no, I'm whitey, man. I need to go home."
Well, I've heard that theory before, but never that it's in real time. That's a game changer
It's
because
because your brain is so powerful. It can basically, like, what is it? Dreams are meant to last 7 seconds or something like that.
it makes me wonder. Maybe we're on a continual loop. So maybe, strictly speaking, we never truly die. We just like maybe things like can exist like soul swapping and swapping of timelines, swapping of lives, etc. But maybe it's also just possible to just relive this life.
Possibly, yeah. This is some Black Mirror kind of stuff. But yeah, but I was reading that theory and I was like, okay, I don't believe in God, but I do believe something happens.
Yeah,
Your brain's too complex to not have something happening. So it could basically be on a loop, like you said, or we could be rewatching things right at the minute and we don't even know.
hope
So
it's
that's
worth
why
watching.
that's why I always think like, obviously people are scared of stuff and that, but that's the thing that gives you adrenaline that makes you feel alive. If you're scared, that's good. You've got emotion. So again, go and do the things that you want to do. Like go book that holiday to Italy. Go do whatever. Because at the end, you're going to be the only person watching the movie at the end.
Damn, man, you're hitting us with the deep shit. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, I'm gonna end it there. I just want to say a massive thank you just for sharing. I think it's maybe underappreciated how important it is for people to talk about this, but also for a man to talk about it. Um, I think it's only now becoming this new thing that men can actually do that.
This is what I was
Um,
saying in the last one whenever we were talking. Like, whenever we see each other, it used to be a handshake. Now it's like, oh, you're right, dude. How's it going? Quick hug, quick fist pump. It's it's like showing affection. Like, it actually is good to see you. You know,
you know what changed it in our particular friendship? There's always a moment I find where you go from being like acquaintances to being friends, but also like a moment where you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'd like this person, and here's why. So I think it was either my birthday or it might have been before my birthday. Basically, we went to Vimto Park and we sat
oh shit, yeah.
and we drank and we just you talked about your band, you talked about your ex coming to Manchester, a bunch of shit. I talked about my life, and we were just chatting, and I think in that hearing you talk about these things, I was like, okay, so there's a lot of depth to this guy. This is what this guy is like. All right, I like this person. This is a cool guy. And also, once you do that, it goes up beyond a certain point, and then you just now you know you're closer. You've shared some things, and you know each other. And from there on, it's funny. Like, there's people I know now where, yeah, like they might go in for a handshake, and I kind of just laugh and go for a hug instead.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm
And
like, please, that's insulting.
I think it's more manly doing that because you're so
Yeah.
comfortable with dealing with stuff like that. Like I remember the first time I met you, I think
Oh
you went,
wow. Yeah, yeah.
it was in GC. I think you had just recently moved up and you said you didn't really know many people. It was during the day. It
When I
was
met
what
you, okay, it was it was the summer of 2023. It actually was. It was the summer of 2023. I was completely drenched, even though it was summertime. It just pissed it down in
Oh
Manchester
yeah, I remember
because
you walked in and I
Manchester.
was like, "Fuck me, it's a bit damp out there, isn't it?"
I just come from a job interview, which I didn't get, and I was
I
like,
was trying to help
"Fuck."
you with cookie.
Yeah, that was the first thing you did is give me his number.
Yeah, I know this big guy who
Everyone's
was
got a
being
story about how they
aggressive.
got Cookie's number, and I'm like, that's how I got Cookie's number, and it was within 2 minutes of walking in GC, which I think is fucking hilarious. But
Yeah.
um,
I remember you telling me that you don't really know anybody, and I was like, well, on my days
yeah,
off, between like 1 and 4, maybe 1 and 5, I normally pop in for a beer. So if you're knocking about and you're walking past and you see me pop in, we'll have a beer, we'll have a chat.
no, I appreciated that a lot, and I'd walked past GC. I'd only discovered it that year, and I was like, oh, that place looks cool. And I just sort of walked past here and there. I think it's because I'd moved to the area. That was it. I was either in the process of moving. That must be it because before that I was living in Salford, so I was obviously aware of Oxford Street, or Road, but I never went there. So I was in the area. I was looking for work. That then happened, and I just started going there. And I remember talking to Scoot about this one time, and he said like it's interesting, like the I don't know, like how you become a regular is like you just keep showing up, and like people will see you at the bar, and like you'll never like no one will ever turn around to you and be like, "Oh, come over here, buddy, and join our conversation." Like sometimes you might do that, but like a lot of the time, it's up to you to do that.
Yeah,
But you kind of judge it. So you hear this conversation. If it's general, you pitch in, and now you're part of the conversation, and then that's when you show your personality and who you are. Like I think me becoming a regular there and becoming friends with everyone, I just kept showing up, talking to people, not
yeah.
expecting anything, not wanting anything, just talking.
I think
Um,
it's a good sign to become friends with as well. You
yeah,
know, like I think me and Josh are probably like the two like original sane people that from that scene that are still knocking about. And now you've got like a whole new generation of like people in the scene and stuff. And like I said, this is probably one of the best group of people that's been around in a long time, apart from maybe, one or two people who might cause a little bit of an issue. But like this is probably, yeah, I think everyone's a lot closer.
mm, I get that vibe. Like whenever I walk in there, it feels like a cool vibe.
Like
But
even the other week, whenever you were jamming on the Sunday, and I was like, lads, you want to be on social media?
that's sick.
Took like a quick video. I was like, right, it's going on the Salisbury page, yeah.
That's
And you could
fun.
see that it was just a group of friends just chilling together, playing a few songs. I think was it George forgot the lyrics, and then everyone just started laughing, and it just looked really wholesome.
I knew they were going to forget the lyrics. So that's why I
Yeah.
didn't. That's why I deliberately stopped. They stopped singing. I was like,
And everyone just
ah.
looked at each other and started laughing, and then you could see like my phone just like vibrating because I'm giggling to myself as well. Like, but you can tell that everyone's quite good friends. They're quite close just from that little video.
I think what's interesting about it as well is normally, and maybe it's because we're all around the same age ish. I don't know, but we're all friends with bar staff in those venues, right? So like, you run your bar, and I'm friends with you, and I drink there. And I guess I don't think much of it, but like I've drunk with people from Salisbury before. I frequently drink with the people from GC. Um,
Normally, what happens, like, but GC close, Salisbury close, and then we all get together in Bunny Jackson's,
yeah.
and then
I guess the arcing point with all of this, bringing it back to our audience, because this is just like us chatting now.
yeah,
um, the point is, you can very easily become part of a group like that, and it can do wonders for your mental health and everything. And you can reach out to people, and they'll be there for you. Yeah, I can think of times when like when Adam lost someone, and I remember one night was like, "Hey, I need someone. Is anyone out tonight?" And like a bunch of us were just like, "Yeah," came out, and like that was just for him. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking about that. Like, that's cool that there's a situation where that's possible. You know, checking in with your friends, and that comes from being there for each other, but also just showing up, man. Just you want to make friends, you want to go out there and do stuff. Just show up. That's all you gotta
Yeah.
do. Show
Or
up.
if I'm working and I can't make it out, I'd be like, just pop in. I'm here every day. You know where I am. If I can't come and see you, come see me. Whenever we finish work, if you want to have, a can after work and have a chat, or if you want to go somewhere else for a beer once I finish, we can have a chat, or just, and because both bars are quite friendly, you'd be there for like 5 minutes. Next thing you're in a conversation with some random person, and
Happens every time.
next thing you're adding each other on Facebook and Instagram. Next thing you're meeting up next week for a beer, or going to watch football or going to a gig, and then the group just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, there's a lot of new faces lately.
Yeah,
It's interesting, but it's good.
and the new breed of baby rockers showing up.
I know. I like that as well because when they start talking, and I'm just like, oh, well, I was there in the begone
Yeah,
times. I'm not old. I remember because I like doing that. And people are like, oh, you're not that old. And I'm like, yes, I fucking am.
yeah. I
I'm
dated
a
somebody
lot
the other
older than you.
day. I dated somebody the other day, and they were born in 2007.
Jesus Christ.
I was 15.
2007.
Yeah, 2007's the age now.
What the fuck?
I know, we're getting old, man.
How can you be 18 in 2007? What? Oh, that fucks with my head,
Yeah.
like, just what?
I remember saying it that like whenever he gave me his ID, and I was like, "Nah, you're full of shit." Like, and then I was like counting on my hands, and I was like, "Oh shit, no, he is 18." Fuck.
Weird. And on that note, we'll end it there. Thank you so much for being on the show, Eddie. It's
Thanks
been
for
an
having
absolute
me.
pleasure. I can't wait till the next time because it's
Yeah,
definitely going to happen
definitely, man.
again. Yeah, thanks for sharing your mental health experiences with us, man.
Thanks for having me. Bless you.
Thank you. And to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it was worth the wait. It's been a long time in the making. I hope you enjoy this series of shows. And if I can leave it on a final note, look, if you're struggling with your mental health, talk to people. Just to anyone. Grab someone.
My inbox is always open. Even if it's just if it's one of our friends that know us or one of the people that know us, just drop us a message.
Just talk. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.